to the world? What have we done to the world? I'm burning in the dystopia. There's no place to hide. I'm burning in the dystopia. This is the final scene of
Hey everyone, happy Tuesday. Welcome to The Cult. The Cult is a show that I stream Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time or thereabouts. I apologize for being late. I couldn't find my glasses. I had them. It was one of those things, like, this is how you know I'm old. I had them in my hands, and then I put them down, and then I went to give my dogs a bone, and then there was a fight about the bone, and then there had to be separation of the dogs about the bone. And then I came in here and I was all ready to start my stream, and I was like, where the F are my glasses? What happened? And then there was a mad dash around the house and you know where they were? They were on the bathroom counter. They were on the bathroom counter all along, right where I left them. But that's okay. Crisis averted. Crisis averted. We are back in action today, guys. And after an epic 11-hour record-breaking stream to celebrate the launch of Groyper War 2, we are not doing anything related to Nick and the Groypers today. I'm so sorry if that's what people tuned in for, but we do have to go back to what we actually do here, which is the left and socialism and covering all the crazy dystopian things in the world. And though I have a great appreciation for the fact that Nick and the Groypers are going to be really formally kicking off the Groyper War tonight on Nick's show a little bit later, and I strongly recommend everyone go and take part. I will be tuning into the show after the fact, but we have important business to attend to. And I gotta be honest, I've been waiting for this one. Our friend Stu Studio has come through for us again. Stu Studio, I feel like here's what it is. And listen, I got connected with Stu Studio before he started blowing up on Twitter, because he was just one of those guys that he was just like going into trainings just like I did and recording them and then putting them on the internet. And his stuff wasn't even getting that many views. And the first training we watched from Stu Studio, he did a FOIA request for like what was it? It was like queer. It had something to do with something queer, a queer romance workshop at the University of Virginia or something like that they had paid like tens of thousands of dollars for. And we watched that on the channel. And anyway, like I bring this up because I kind of feel like this is one of those moments where I know I've been in this game a while, which I've only been in this game, 4.5 years now. But I feel like it's been forever and a day, because it goes so quickly and you do so much and it's so heady. And so it's like you become a veteran in this space very quickly. And so I feel like I'm looking at what Stu Studio is doing now, and I'm like, he is that young upstart that had that energy, that had that piss and vinegar that I used to have 4.5 years ago, and I am tired, and I am sullen, and I am black-pilled, and I am now relying on the work of Stu Studio, because it's so good, because he's got this figured out, man. Stu Studio knows how to get into the private calls of these groups. He does it unapologetically. He does such a great job. Actually, I need to find the Twitter thread he did about this. Hang on. It's okay because I tweeted it earlier. So hang on, we'll get this up. And he's just doing such a great job. And we're so lucky to have him because he's just providing us with a wealth of leftist content. He does awesome coverage of it on Twitter. If you are not following him, he is at the Stu Studio on Twitter. His stuff has been blowing up ever since the campus protests start. And I don't listen, Stu and I might disagree on some stuff, and that's cool. I'm fine with disagreement. Because his work is just so good that I just don't even. We can disagree on every other subject. We can be on separate, and I don't care because his work is just so good, and I believe in him, and he's just doing a great job. And so I can't say enough good things about him. And I'm really happy that he got this presentation for us because next week is the DNC. We've been waiting for it, the Democratic National Convention. Now, you guys know that I did coverage of the RNC. I did full coverage of the RNC. I watched the entire RNC from start to finish on this channel with all of you. And many of you watched the whole thing too. And I got to tell you, sometimes that was a little bit difficult. I drank a lot of alcohol that week, a lot more than I planned on drinking because it was so difficult. So you'd advise against a road trip to downtown Chicago for deep dish pizza night? Yes. Yes, I would advise that everyone in the Chicago area stay the F away. Honestly, though, because listen, I think the DNC is actually going to be really exciting to cover. I'm excited. I'm Judgmental Lizard. I'm excited too. I think the DNC is going to be woke. I think it's going to be cringe. I think it's going to be so entertaining. I think the protests are going to be massive. I saw an article so right now, the protesters that are planning to protest the DNC, they're kind of in a little bit of a fight with the city of Chicago because the city of Chicago wants to cordon them off. And the protesters, who you guys know aren't exactly receptive to that type of control, are really pushing it. But in that article, basically it said that they're expecting 4 times the protesters in Chicago at the DNC than protested the RNC. And make no mistake, these are the same groups. These are the same groups of people that protested the RNC. They're also going to the DNC. But I keep telling you guys, far left radicals hate Democrats significantly more than they hate Republicans. There's going to be a significantly bigger protest at the DNC than there was at the RNC, and we're going to be covering all of it, and we're going to be covering it next week. But luckily, Stu Studio has given us a preview into what we can expect, and he recorded this presentation for us called The DNC in Chicago. The whole world is watching. And who's that? Does anyone know who this is? Everyone should know who this is. If you don't know who this is, perhaps you missed that time when I had a massive hissy fit about people not mounting the like button when we were supposed to watch a Weather Underground documentary, and I stopped the stream in the middle of it because I was so pissed. I was like, no one's mounting the like button. No one wants to be here. You guys don't want to be here. I don't want to be here neither. And I stopped the stream. And then everyone learned a lesson about mounting the like button. And then I came back later and we did the stream. Yeah, that's Bill Ayers. That's Bill Ayers. That is Bill Ayers of the Weather Underground. Yep, Kristen gets the gold star today. Bill Ayers is one of the most famous far-left radicals in the history of far-left radicals. Bill Ayers was part of a group that was, sending bombs out in the, the 60s, 70s. Anyway, I don't know who the old lady is. I don't know that. That's a good question, though. Stu Studio knows who she is, though. Why the greater amount of Democratic hate versus Republican hate? Because they do not... So radical socialists do not view Republicans and conservatives as any kind of threat to them. That's just reality. There's no reason for radical revolutionary socialists to view Republicans or conservatives as a threat. They don't. The only time that they talk about conservatives is when they're trying to rile up their base to get them to do something, but they don't view you guys as a threat. They view Democrats as a threat because the Democrats are the ones that are constantly standing in their way of getting what they want. And people get this confused because stupid conservative pundits on Twitter keep saying, Democrats are socialists, Democrats are socialists, Democrats are socialists, Democrats are not socialists. No. Real socialists disagree. Real socialists hate the Democrats because they believe that the Democrats are essentially standing in their way of getting what they want. And so they hate them far more than they hate Republicans because Republicans are like an afterthought. Republicans to them are kind of like, they're like ants. Like, they're around, they might be annoying. You don't want a bunch of ants thrown into your picnic or whatever, but like, you can just step on them. You can just spray them with spray. Like, they're not actually that concerned. So that is why they hate Democrats way more than they hate Republicans. And today we're going to be watching this presentation, guys, and let it just take a look. Stu Studio did a whole thread about it on Twitter. I will read that description in a minute so we can get an idea of what we're walking into. But before we do that, please mount the like button for me. Please make sure you are subscribed to the channel. I've got a couple other orders of business. Number one, of course, always make sure you are signed up for my Substack, which is Carlyn, KARLYN.substack.com. Now, I do have to apologize to people because I did not post a re-education article yesterday because I had an 11-hour stream about Nick Fuentes and the Groypers, and so I apologize, but you will be getting one later today. You might even get two later today as a makeup article. The re-education series is going back and just enumerating all the kind of like basic things that people need to know about the left and what they're doing and what you need to know in order to beat them. We're going point by point. Each article is written. It's short, it's concise, it's in plain English, telling you the critical information you need to know. This is going to be especially good for people who are new to my work and you want to get up to speed really quickly. The best place to go on the Substack is into the Woke 101 section, where you're going to see all the re-education series. You can also get access to all of my Woke 101 articles, by the way, which are slightly different than the re-education series. The re-education series is a really specific thing, but this is the Woke 101 section of my Substack is like, if you're new and you want to understand things that no one will teach you because there's just no onboarding process when you become an unwoke activist. It doesn't exist. I will break this stuff down for you in plain English. Also got some podcasts going on the Substack, all that good stuff. I've also got some video clips going up later today. So lots of stuff going on the Substack. And guys, the very best place to support the work I'm doing, if you want to keep me in business, is over on the Substack for $8 a month, $80 a year. I am 100% funded by you. I cannot do this stuff without you. So if you have the means to do it, please consider supporting it. And guys, like, one of the reasons I ask for support all the time is I really, 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 really want to keep my content free for everyone. There have been times when I've locked down all my content because people were stealing my content or because I didn't have enough support to be able to justify making it all freely available. And I'm asking you guys, if you can financially support my work, if you're reading my articles, if you find them valuable, if you're coming to the streams and you find them valuable, please, and you're financially able to do so, please consider supporting my work, because there are legitimately people who follow my work, who support my work, who just can't afford like $8 a month or $80 a year in order to support it. I really want to keep this stuff free for everyone. That is my hope. And it is my hope that people will step up and support it if they can, because I'm the only one doing this stuff on the internet. James Lindsay is not doing this stuff. James Lindsay is not breaking it down in plain English. James Lindsay is not showing you far left training videos. James Lindsay is mostly spouting conservative talking points. There is no one else on the internet that is doing this. And so if you want this to continue, it needs to be funded by you, because I want to be beholden to you, not some political organization that's going to tell me what to say and what I can't say and all that. So $8 a month, $80 a year does keep me in business. And this week, too, you're going to get a special perk for supporting it, because tomorrow we have our spy stream. Supposed to be last week, got postponed. So tomorrow we have spy stream. Spy stream is when we go inside a live woke training that is a private training that I get access to through means. And tomorrow, fingers crossed, if I get the link, I don't have it yet, but I'm supposed to get it. So I'm not 100% guaranteeing it, but I'm going to say that, like, I'm pretty sure I'm going to get it. Tomorrow, there's going to be a spy stream all about transgender kids in school. So don't pay attention to Matt Walsh when Matt Walsh goes, conservatives are winning. We've defeated the transgender problem. We defeated the transgender problem so quickly. There's nothing even else to say here. This is going to be a training done by public school teachers that are also far left radical activists, specifically about trans kids in school. So don't pay attention to any conservative pundit that doesn't actually keep their ear to the ground to know what's going on. This stuff is still going on. I will show you what's going on. And this is a supporter only perk for people who are supporters on my Substack, on my locals, Twitter subscribers, YouTube channel members, or Patreon supporters. And I will be sending out the links and all the information for that. That'll be at, I believe it's 7-ish p.m. Eastern time tomorrow. I believe, don't quote me on that. I will send out the information tomorrow, but that's one of the perks you get when you do support the work I'm doing over on my Substack is access to all of my Spy Stream archives, and there are a bunch of them, and it's some of the craziest stuff you will ever see. Stuff no conservative influencer is showing you, stuff you will not see on Libs of TikTok, unless Libs of TikTok takes my clips later, which has happened. The only way you'll see it is through me. So let me show you what's really going on. I really do appreciate it. Just finished my socialist public school teaching today. Well, hey, congratulations on that. Another way you can support the work I'm doing is by heading over to the Unwoke Art store. That is unwokeart.com. Link is in the description below. Let me just pop the link in the chat over on YouTube and on Rumble. And this is my merch store. I don't mean to brag, but I really do think I have like the best merch on the internet. My merch is cool, man. My merch is the stuff like, you know, I mean, maybe, I don't know, maybe it's cringe. I don't know. But like, this is the type of stuff that I like to buy. This is the type of stuff that I would wear. This is the type, like, my merch is like mostly modeled after like stuff I would buy at like concerts, or I would go into like a record store when like did you guys know there used to be record stores? There used to be like independent music stores. And they used to be awesome. I'm not talking about like FYE at the mall or whatever the hell that store is called. I'm not even talking about Newbury Comics, although Newbury Comics, before they franchised out, was pretty effing cool. I'm talking about like local music shops that are just, you go in and there's like there's like, you know, there's massive amounts of like literal records. Did people even know what we didn't know. We didn't know how good we had it. We didn't know. We didn't know. You'd be able to go to concerts, get cool shit. We didn't know. We weren't aware. Anyway, I think my merch is the best merch on the internet. It's modeled kind of like after stuff that I used to like in those types of environments. We got a couple new items in the store right now. We have got the August special edition Plague Doctor t-shirt. I do a different Plague Doctor t-shirt every month because it is the year of the anti-hero, and I picked out the Plague Doctor at the beginning of the year as my ultimate anti-hero. And then, wouldn't you know it, it turns out Nick Fuentes also became the anti-hero this year. It's a coincidence, isn't it? So I did this anti-hero t-shirt, just was inspired by what Nick Fuentes is doing with the Groiper War. I've got some other kind of This Is War designs that I'm working on and stuff like that. I just think what they're doing is so cool. It's so subversive. I love it so much. So these are my newest designs in the Unwoke Art store, available right now. We've also got lots of other cool stuff. We've got a whole host of designs based on zines. These are really cool. We've got the 4 goals of the Woke Left design by Bot. We've got this is the Communism is All Around Us. This is just my little sweetheart design. I don't even know if I like this one anymore, but it looks cool. I don't know. I think it looks cool. We've got my dystopian collection based off of dystopian movies that I like. All sorts of cool stuff going on in the Unwoke Art store, and you can pick up some cool gifts. And of course, all purchases do go to support the work I'm doing, and I really appreciate it. Moxie in with the first super chat of the day, guys. Of course, super chats are also a way to support the work I'm doing, whatever way works best for you guys. And thank you, Moxie. I appreciate it. All right, what else do I have? Is there anything else? Oh, one more thing. Okay, this is probably a mistake. Yes, there are stickers still available. There are a bunch of stickers. Yep. And there are other sticker packs I want to do that I've been saying I'm going to do for a while, and I just haven't done them. But there are other sticker packs I want to do. But there are stickers available in the store if you want to buy them. Okay, so this is probably a mistake, but I'm going to do it anyway. So people have been asking me to talk to this guy, Zach. I don't know who Zach is, but, you know, people asked me to talk to him, and I said to him, Zach, can you help me to understand how the JQ fits in with what we see with real activists in the world today? And I've made this very clear. And this is my little, listen, man, I'm allowing the dissident right to teach me things. And one of the things the dissident right has been trying to teach me is essentially that the origin of all the far left socialist ideas is Jewish. Now, I want to be very clear. I'm not 100% bought into this, although I do see their point in a couple of things. I think we can admit that the Bolsheviks many of them were Jewish. Okay, fine. We can admit that like the Frankfurt School, many of them, the overwhelming majority of them were Jewish. We can look at Marx and say, Marx was Jewish, even though Marx wrote on the Jewish question, which is kind of an anti-Semitic paper if we're honest about it. But we can acknowledge some of these things. And to be very clear, I'm not saying that all Jews are responsible for anything. I'm talking about very specific groups of people who happen to be disproportionately Jewish. So this is kind of an argument that I've been having with the dissident right for a while. And every time they bring this up, I say, okay, you make some good points about the historical development of this thing, and I could kind of get on board with that. The problem is that I don't study the historical development of Marxism. I don't need you to educate me about the historical development of Marxism. I don't care. Excuse me. I don't care about the historical development of Marxism, not because I don't think it's relevant, but because I think there are a million other people talking about it. And it's like, why would I want to be talking about the same thing that a million other people are talking about? What I care about is radical, revolutionary, socialist activists, real people, real organizations in the real world today. And what I've consistently said is no one has yet shown me any connection between Jewish overlords and real radical revolutionary socialist activists in the real world today. Because most of the time, people can't even name who the real activists are. We can name who the real activists are. Most people can't even name what the real organizations are. We can name what the real organizations are. And I've asked over and over and over and over and over again for this evidence, and no one gives it to me. They always speak in generalities. They always go, Carlin, it's Soros, which is the stupidest argument that anyone has ever made. Because anyone who follows my work knows that I don't buy the George Soros argument at all in any way. I've spoken extensively about this. Real far left radical revolutionary socialist activist groups are not funded by George Soros. They're funded by dues that their members pay. They're funded by voluntary donations that their members give. They're funded by event ticket sales, and they're funded by publishing. Most of these organizations work on a shoestring budget at best. They don't have all this money they're flinging around. Anyone who tells you these groups are funded by George Soros is lying to you. There is no evidence. Every single time an article comes out saying Soros funded these groups, if you actually read the article, there's literally no evidence in the article. The last time they did this, they said that Soros funded the Columbia University campus protesters, and their evidence of that funding was that one student at Columbia who happened to be involved in the protests one time got a grant from an organization that was kind of connected to George Soros, and that was their evidence. And I was like, bro, you know what's a far more rational explanation? Some rich student at Columbia took daddy's credit card and bought a bunch of fucking tents. And they're like, how come all the tents are the same? Because when you buy all the tents at one time with daddy's credit card, because it's not out of the realm of possibility to think that there might be rich students at Columbia University that are spending daddy's money. When you buy all the tents at one time using daddy's credit card, they're all going to be the fucking same. It's not like they're going to go in and be like, let's get this tent and this tent and this. They're all just going to buy the same thing. So I like what I guess I'm saying is, and this is nothing against this Zach guy. I mean, people like recommended I talk to him. I said I would. I have specifically, and I'm sure he's a nice guy. I have specifically said to Zach, I want real evidence. I don't want the theory. I don't want the development. I don't want any of that. I want real evidence for what's going on right now in the real world. That's what I'm hoping to get. And if I don't get it, that's fine too. But I'm going to be having a Twitter space on Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern time, and I'm going to let Zach show me the evidence that he has. And, again, I'm skeptical going into this because I feel like I've asked for this evidence a million ways from Sunday, and I still haven't gotten it in any form that is acceptable to me. And guys, I get to be the one to judge what I believe is acceptable evidence and what I do not believe is acceptable evidence. I deal entirely in primary source evidence. If you're giving me anything that is not primary source evidence, if you're giving me anything that is cherry picked, if you're giving me anything that is taken out of context, if you're giving me anything that you've taken and twisted to fit a narrative, I will sniff it out. I know how to do this. I'm not stupid. I'm not just off the fucking bus. I want real primary source evidence. And if you cannot give me that, then I don't want to hear it anymore. Just because there were Jewish people involved in the development of this thing that became the Marxist Cultural Revolution in the United States does not mean that it is entirely done by Jewish people now. It just doesn't. It doesn't mean that at all. I've been undercover at their events. I know these people. I know they're. It's not that there are no Jewish people there, but they're like onesie and twosies. It is not overwhelmingly Jewish. I think at some point, the actual real world activists mutated away from the origin point of it. And that's the discussion I want to have. And I don't want anyone whining. I don't want anyone crying if I don't agree with you, because I think I'm being more than fair. And I think I'm being more than open to receiving evidence. But if people can't give me the evidence that I'm asking for in a way that I find acceptable, then I'm not just going to buy into it just to make people happy. I want evidence. I want primary source evidence. I want real evidence. I don't want any whining and complaining. I'm not asking for too much. I'm not saying that Zach is doing that. I'm sure he's a very nice guy. So we will be having that conversation on Thursday. If you would like to come and try to provide me with evidence, then you are welcome to come to the space and provide me evidence. We want receipts. I don't want propaganda. I don't want narrative. I don't want any of that. There's nothing in this that is what I cannot emphasize it. This is not what I am asking for. I cannot emphasize this enough, guys. And if it seems like I'm getting heated, it's because I am being very fucking specific in what my ask is. And over and over and over and over and over again, people are bringing me things that are not the thing that I'm asking for. And every single time someone brings me something that is not specifically what I am asking for, it just makes me believe that what I'm specifically asking for does not exist, and you're trying to trick me in some way, which is not what I want. So I want primary source evidence that shows direct connection between Jewish elites or whatever and real radical revolutionary socialist activists that are active in the United States today. Real people, real organization, not pinky swear, trust me, bro. No fucking historical receipts. No. I don't know what is confusing about this. Oh my fucking God. What is confusing about this? I want nothing that is prior to 1990. If anyone brings me any receipts that are prior to the year 1990, I am kicking you out of the space and fucking blocking you. And I'm serious about this. Nothing prior to 1990. Nothing that is not directly related to the United States. Nothing that is not related to far left radical revolutionary socialist activists. That's it. Nothing that is not primary source. Nothing that is confirmation bias. Nothing that is cherry picked. Nothing that is taken out of context. I'm not asking too much. Not asking too much. Well, see, this is kind of what I'm thinking, but I guess we'll see. No, it's not happening today. It's happening on Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern. And, I appreciate Zach for being a good sport. Again, my consternation about this is not actually directed at him. I don't know him. He seems like a nice enough guy. He hasn't done anything to me. I'm not angry at him in any way. I'm just saying that I've tried to find this material and no one's been able to give me what I want. And so if you have the receipts, fucking bring it. Otherwise, shut the fuck up and stop pushing these ideas that you don't have evidence for. We don't deal in pinky swear, trust me, bro, on this channel. We deal in actual receipts. If the receipts exist, I'm open to looking at them. I hope you'll come to the space if you have information you want me to see. But again, nothing before 1990, nothing that is not related to the United States, nothing that is not connected to real activists and real organizations in the real world today, nothing that is cherry picked, nothing that is confirmation bias, nothing that is a piece of propaganda that you've created with evidence that's picked out of context. None of that. I don't care. I'm not going to look at it. It's not what I want. I want real primary source evidence. That's it. Anyway, I didn't really intend to go on that much of a rant about that. Obviously, I have a lot of pent-up feelings about this Twitter space and things people have asked me to do. And I want to say too, hang on, someone said, I don't think Nick and I would have a good conversation about this topic, if I'm being honest about it, because I don't think Nick has this evidence either. I don't think Nick can talk about this either. I think I know, I'm sorry, there are certain things that Nick Fuentes is way smarter than me on. I will say I know nothing about the Middle East. Everything I know about the Middle East, I've learned from him. So there are topics that Nick Fuentes is way smarter than me on. However, Nick Fuentes is not smarter than me on the radical revolutionary socialist left in the United States right now. There is no way. There is nothing that gives me that indication. I'm not dissing him. I'm just saying that we all have our strengths. That's not one of them. And I have not heard Nick say anything that makes me think that he has this evidence. So maybe he does and he's just squirreled it away in a folder somewhere. If he does, I'd like to see it, but I don't think he has it. Not what I'm specifically asking for. The RevComs. God, I fucking hate the RevComs. Are so cringe. We're gonna have to watch the RevComs someday. The RevComs are not to be confused with the Revolutionary Communists of America. They're not the same thing. The RevComs are like this. They're always around. It's like this communist group that they're kind of like old hippie type people. And they're always around at these leftist events and they always have flyers and I know who they are and I know what their content is. And I've had it on the list to watch for a long time. And then I'm just like, ugh, I don't want to watch them. They're like, you know what they are? They're like boomer socialists. They're boomers. I don't know if I want to watch them. We probably have to at some point. Do you think different protests will... I mean, we already talked about that, Teresa. The protests at the DNC are going to be really big. Anyway, let's actually get into that, shall we? Now that I've yelled on the internet. Oh, wait, by the way, one more thing. Promise. Last thing. This is Tuesday, and that means this is not my only stream of the day. It just means that this is my first stream of the day, and we will be going live at 9 p.m. tonight for the latest episode of Disenrage, which is the show that's replaced Nothing Remotely Controversial, because Joshua had to go do other stuff, and so he couldn't do the show anymore. So we've replaced it with a new show called Disenraged, and that's with Jennifer. And Jennifer sadly lost a pet over the weekend, and I know that a lot of people can empathize with losing a pet. Disenraged is a show about spirituality, mindfulness, the bigger questions in life. We don't talk about politics. We don't do any of that stuff on Disenraged. And so Jennifer lost a pet over the weekend, and she's been processing that information. And she wanted, and this was her choice, I didn't push her into it. She wanted to do a show about what happens when our pets die, what happens when our pets cross over. I know this is something like, I'm betting that the vast majority of people here have probably had the experience of losing a pet, and it's heartbreaking because they are our family. And if you haven't had that experience, like, I mean, it teaches you a lot. And so we are going to be having a conversation at 9 p.m. tonight about what happens when pets cross over. We're going to be watching some videos to get some perspective, because sometimes when you're trying to heal from a loss, it can help to have a higher level perspective of what's going on. So that'll be at 9 p.m. tonight. You can join us back for that. But for now, let's get into dystopia, shall we? Let's get into dystopia. Oh, we needed to read this introduction from Stu. Hang on. We needed to read this introduction from Stu. Do not spam my chat with all capital letters, especially if you really think that... Bro, do you really think that we aren't aware of this? And I wouldn't call it a color revolution. It's a cultural revolution. I would not call it a color revolution at all. But do not spam my chat with all capital letters. That's just not... It's not called for. All right. Here is the introduction that Stu Studio gave for the video that we are watching today. And he wrote this a couple weeks ago, but he's just gotten around to putting the video on his YouTube channel. So that's what I've been waiting for to watch it. Code Pink hosted a webinar with two former members of the domestic terrorist group Weather Underground. Oh, Eleanor was also a member of the Weather Underground. Got it. Bill Ayers and Eleanor Stein, Jewish, by the way, shared their wisdom with a new generation of radical activists. Ayers was particularly complimentary of the student encampments. Hats off to the encampments and hats off to creating spaces where real education went on. Any university worth its salt would have said, wow, the encampments are doing something we should have been doing all along. Let's embrace them. Let's invest in them. And instead, they called the cops. Ayers thinks that student encampment energy is going to make itself known at the Democratic Convention this August. Remember, Ayers and the Students for a Democratic Society rioted in Chicago in 1968 convention. A lot of that encampment energy is coming to Chicago. Where is it going to go? What outlet does it have? So that's what we're talking about, guys. The protests at the DNC are going to be real. And now we're going to watch the whole presentation. And we're going to see what they had to say. Again, guys, please make sure you mount the like button if you have not mounted the like button already. Please make sure you are subscribed to my channel if you are not yet. I stream every Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Let's see what's going to happen at the DNC.
Danica. I'm one of the national co-directors at Code Pink. And thank you for joining today for this webinar. The DNC in Chicago, the whole world is watching. Chicago hosted the Democratic National Convention in 1968 in the wake of the Vietnam War and protests against U.S. imperialism. And this year,
hang on. I share as much of your work as I can here in Utah. Hey, I really appreciate that. Thanks so much for the super chat.
Chicago will host the DNC again amid the growing movement for Palestine as the United States continues its support for Israel. I'm really excited. I have three great panelists here today to have a little discussion about the DNC, what it means, the parallels, and how to take this movement and build the movement with this as a jumping off point. Three people I really respect and admire. We have Bill Ayers, a distinguished professor of education and a retired senior university scholar at the University of Illinois, Chicago. He is an engaged scholar and a peace and social justice activist who's written extensively about social justice, freedom, democracy, education, and the cultural context of schooling. And Bill was actually present at the March on the DNC in 1968 in Chicago.
Christopher says, isn't the protest site like miles away from the... So no, it's not. It's right. It's within sight and sound of the convention center, which is the standard that they have to have, I guess. But yeah, it's within. So it's my understanding it's like a block away or something like that, which is not good enough for the protesters.
We have Medea Benjamin, the co-founder of Code Pink. She's also the co-founder of the human rights groups Global Exchange, Peace in Ukraine Coalition, Unfreeze Afghanistan, and Asere. Medea has protested at DNCs and RNCs as a part of Code Pink demonstrations over the years. And Eleanor Stein is a climate justice advocate and activist. She teaches law of climate change and human rights at the State University of New York and has taught climate change law since 2005. And Eleanor is also very, very involved, and I'm sure we'll talk a bit more about it, in the mass movement against the Vietnam War in the 60s and 70s. And just to give people sort of a brief overview of what we have in the works as the DNC approaches in just, I think, 2.5 weeks or 3 weeks. Code Pink is part of the March on the DNC coalition, which is a huge cohort of organizations. You could look on the March on the DNC website to see the full list, but it's us and primarily a lot of Palestinian groups that are based here in Chicago to march on the DNC, with our largest demand being about Palestine and stopping U.S. arms to Israel.
I just want to stop right there because what you'll hear, stop right now. I have already asked you once to stop spamming my chat. If you do not have something to say that is not directly relevant to the presentation and what we're seeing in the presentation, I don't want to hear it. Next time you do it, I'm going to put you in a timeout. If you do it again after that, I'm going to ban you. Stop it. We're trying to watch the presentation and learn from it. These are research streams. These are not streams for you to rant and rave about whatever you feel like ranting and raving about. So what I was going to say before I was rudely interrupted is that oftentimes you'll hear from conservatives that they don't even know why they're protesting. The Democrats don't even know why they're protesting. The students don't even know why they're protesting. That is always bullshit. Every single time. Protests always have demands. And they always list their demands. They always enumerate their demands. And so what did you just hear? We don't want the U.S. giving arms to Israel. That's why they're protesting. That is the goal of the thing. Now, might it be that some conservative influencer can take a phone and go up to some random person in the crowd and go, "Why are you here?" And the person doesn't know? Yeah, sure. That's what happens at protests. A lot of people show up and some know why they're there and some don't because they're just there for the show or they're there because it's interesting. They want to see what's going on. But that doesn't mean that the people running the protest don't know why they're running it. That doesn't mean the true believers don't know what's going on. That doesn't mean the most engaged people have no idea why they're protesting. They always know why they're protesting.
We are marching on the DNC August 19th and 22nd, so the first and last days of the DNC. And if you go to codepink.org/Chicago, you will find all of the information that you need to join us both those days and
it's an
for
organization.
Our fun Code Pink disruptions the other days as well. We're actually starting activities on the 18th with a separate march and then another disruption. So we have a jam-packed week of activities. But I do want to talk to these three about Democratic national conventions in general, and also the movements that have shown up on their doorstep over the years. So this will be a discussion. We'll have about 40-ish minutes, and then I'm hoping we can have time at the end for questions. So please feel free, if you're a participant on the Zoom function, to use the Q&A function throughout the whole thing. If they're coming up, please type them in the Q&A, and we'll try and get to them at the end. But until then, we'll just discuss among the three of us. I'll have questions, and then we can just rip off each other. But I'm going to start with
Wait. You guys know what? Code Pink might be having a meeting tonight. Hang on. We might be able to get into their Zoom meeting tonight. Hang on. Let me make sure. Like in like an hour. They've got a meeting scheduled in like an hour. Hang on. Let me just make sure I can get it. Hang on 1 sec. Sorry. Let me just make sure I get the email. And guess what? We'll have a fucking impromptu spy stream. I don't give a fuck. I'll just broadcast it on this stream. Who's your favorite leftist infiltrator, guys? Who's your favorite leftist infiltrator? Who's your favorite leftist infiltrator that now has a meeting link to this Code Pink planning meeting that's happening in an hour? Who's your favorite leftist infiltrator? I know that Stu Studio is doing a great job. I don't want to undermine Stu Studio, but we've got the Zoom link. It is in my email right now. We have got the Zoom link. Shit. All right. Let's make sure to meet that super chat goal, all right? And we'll go inside a live training in less than an hour. Who's excited? Secret agent. You're all secret agents now. We're broadcasting this live on the internet, man. All right, let's continue to watch this. And we'll get to the other stuff later.
Medea, because I was just with Medea in Milwaukee to protest the Republican National Convention.
Same groups. And
Medea, a lot has changed since then. Like things changed right before the RNC and then right after the RNC. And even last night. So What do you make of the current escalations in the war in Gaza? As just last night, Hamas's political leader was assassinated. And what do you think about it in the context of what the movement is doing in the US, and it's still, resisting Israel's genocide, and we're still protesting the DNC. So what do you make of the changes and the escalation and then within the Democratic Party itself?
Well, it's
Hey!
amazing, as you say, so
Thank
much changes.
you.
We don't know what's happening day to day these days. I mean, going
Thanks
to
for
the
the blizzard.
RNC, who would have known that there would be an assassination attempt against Trump?
Yo!
I have no idea if that kept some people away, but it seems like there was not a lot of mobilizing for the
Abs are
RNC to begin with, right,
wing!
Danica? I mean, you were closer to that than I was.
Yeah, there was the
Thank you,
one
guys.
march that had a pretty large coalition, but day of, it felt, I'm glad we had a safe march with everyone, but it was rather small. And we're sort of the only group there the other days doing other demonstrations.
It was quite shocking. I mean, the march itself, I don't think was more than 2,000 people, which is amazing that it was so small. And then to see the streets outside the convention center, I mean, full of people going to the convention center, but devoid of protesters. It was just surreal almost, because you think of all the people in this country that hate Donald Trump and say that if he wins, it will be the end of democracy and fascism in this country. And it will be, people wanting, those with the privilege of having a passport, trying to decide where they're going to go live. I mean, it's the amount of fear about a Donald Trump victory is so huge. And yet, where were those people? So I was very stunned by the lack of protests on the streets during the RNC. Now, I expect there to be a lot more at the DNC because it's in Chicago, which is a bigger city than Milwaukee.
Well, okay, so there's a couple reasons there's going to be more at the DNC. But by the way, there were like 20,000 protesters that were protesting the RNC. Like that was no joke. But the reason that there are going to be more protesters in Chicago is really effing socialist. Chicago is run by socialists. And so that's why there's going to be more. Azerwing! So, bro, so generous. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you. Awesome. So we met our goal. Awesome. You guys can still send me money, though. Don't feel like you can't, but we have met our goal, which I really appreciate.
It's a city with a lot of activists.
Socialists.
And the Biden administration is the administration that's been responsible for supporting the genocide in Gaza. So I think there is a lot of anger. Now, what has changed now that Biden is not going to be the candidate? Well, I think that, to me, this is perhaps even more reason to be there and in the streets, because I think of the need right now to be the counterweight to what I see every day in the halls of Congress, which are people from AIPAC. Yesterday, it was flooded with groups from the organization called Christians United.
By the way, guys, these people hate AIPAC and they hate Israel, and it's real.
United for Israel. They were all over the place, and their push was to sanction Iran even further. Of course, they had planned that even before this new development that just happened with the killing of the political leader of Hamas, Ismail Haniyeh, in Iran. Now, the importance of that is tremendous. Understand that Israel has been trying to drag the U.S. into a war with Iran for a long time. And killing this Hamas leader when he was there for the inauguration of the new president of Iran, somebody who campaigned on a platform of better relations with the West, couldn't be a more dramatic new level of danger in what is going to happen in this region, with the new Iranian president feeling the pressure to do something dramatic against Israel. And this affects our situation here in the United States and the convention. And
I just want to note that I know that, listen, I don't know where everyone stands in my chat on the topic of Israel, and everyone's opinion is welcome here. And I don't want anyone to feel like they're not welcome if they don't come down on my side of the issue. I just want to point out for everyone who might be against what Israel is doing in Palestine, and it can feel weird to be on the same side as the far left. And I just want to acknowledge that. There, like, what conservative influencers want to say is everyone who is against what Israel is doing are far leftists. And that's just not true. There are a lot of people who are against what Israel is doing for any myriad of reasons. But I just want to acknowledge that I know it can be a little, it can feel kind of like, it can feel icky. It's like you have like your mortal enemy and you hate everything about that person. And then that person makes a good point that you agree with and you're like, fuck. And that's what it feels like when we hear socialists talking about, or at least what it feels like for me, when I hear socialists talking about how much they hate AIPAC and how much they do believe that what's going on in Palestine is a genocide that they want to stop, and how much they don't want to go to war with Iran. And I'm like, yeah, I believe all those things. Yeah, I believe all that stuff. Yeah. 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 And it can feel icky, but I just want people, that doesn't mean we agree on everything. We just happen to have alignment on this one issue. And someday we will go back to fighting. Well, and sometimes you have to work with enemies, right? Sometimes you have to have single issue coalitions around things where it's like you put everything else aside and you just get along because this is actually the most important thing right now. And then you go back to bickering later. And maybe if you're able to work, bro, you seriously, you just got banned. You just got banned. Goodbye. And maybe if you're able to kind of like work together on some issues, maybe you can find a better, maybe you can just be more friendly on other issues, and you might be able to like find compromises or things like that.
the position of Kamala Harris, because I think she's getting even more pressure now to be tough on the not only Hamas, but all of the groups in the region that have been supporting the Palestinians. And that's why I feel that it's more important than ever to come out. Now, we can talk about the uncommitted movement that tried to put pressure on the Biden administration to do something about the administration's policies on Israel and how important that movement has been. Well, that movement is very divided right now around Kamala Harris. And I think broader than that movement, many people around the country for whom the issue of the genocide in Gaza is a very important issue are really in a state of perhaps confusion about what to do, because you could say on the one hand that Kamala Harris has been part of this administration. She certainly hasn't resigned as a result of saying, this is a horrific policy, I can't stand it, I'm out of here. On the contrary, she's been very much a part of this. And when she was a senator, she was a rock solid supporter of Israel, unconditional military support for Israel. On the other hand, I think people are desperately looking for some light between her and Biden to feel better about voting for her because of their fear of Trump. And so they're looking at things like the fact that she came out before Biden did calling for a ceasefire. In fact, it was back in March. That was 5 months into the genocide, but still before Biden.
Hang on. We got a super chat from Rottweiler. I'm just trying to make a new thumbnail for the stream, guys, since we're technically doing a spy stream tonight. That's what I'm looking at on the other side. I am listening, though. I don't feel like I'm siding with the commies. I don't know what that word is unjust. Oh, a genocide is unjust. Well, the left just wants their global intifada, the issue. Well, I mean, and that's exactly it, because it's one of those things where, like, okay, technically we kind of have the same opinion as the radical leftists on this issue, but we have that opinion for different reasons. I have been anti-war my entire life. That was an issue that I got really into in college. I was protesting the Iraq war in college. I protested after 9/11. Like, I have been anti-war my entire life. Just because the radical left has co-opted, like, these movements does not mean that that changed my position. And so we might agree with them, but we don't agree for the same reason. They don't give a flying fuck about the Palestinians. They don't give a flying fuck. They don't even really care about the Israelis. They care about their oppressor versus oppressed narrative. And in their narrative, Israel is the oppressors. They are the settler colonists. The Palestinians are the oppressed. You know, that's all it is. Exactly. Anti-war is not a left-right issue. Exactly. Thanks for the super chat, Rottweiler.
Express more sympathy towards the plight of the people in Gaza than Biden has. She refused to preside over Netanyahu's visit to Congress, yet she met with him separately, yet she did afterwards talk about the horrific conditions for people in Gaza and that she will not be silent. So people are looking and putting pressure on the Harris campaign is perhaps the most important thing that people can do right now. And that's why this is a long answer to your question, Danica, about why it's so important to be at the DNC, because we have to be there very loud and clear as this voice of morality, this voice of conscience, this voice of let's respect US law and international law, and this voice of saying, let's not allow this to go into an even more dramatic, more dangerous regional war right now. We must be on the streets in large numbers, both outside and inside, protesting this administration, including Kamala Harris, participation in this genocide.
Thanks, Medea.
Bill, maybe I could just ask a question to Medea, or make a little comment and ask a question. First of all, deep admiration and respect for Code Pink and what you've been able to do. Your militancy is unbelievable, but really necessary. And so I'm heeding the call, and I'll be in the streets with you. But I want to take a quick step back and think about what our North Star is, what it is we're trying to accomplish, and what it is, and who our audience is. I think sometimes people feel that our audience is the political class itself. And I think the title of this webinar says it all. The whole world is watching. That's the audience. The audience is masses of people who can be convinced that the narrative about a small, besieged, democratic Israel, fighting for its life against, the barbarians is just wrong. Or the idea that Zionism is somehow a gentle, peaceful thing. I think one of the things we have to note, and I credit Code Pink and I credit Jewish Voice for Peace and all the Palestinian organizations, the Palestinian people, but including Students for Justice in Palestine. But we have changed the narrative in the last 9 months about Israel and about the US role in the Middle East. And I think all credit to the people who did the encampments, the people who rose up. Now, in order to come to something like the RNC, you have to believe it's going to make a difference. You have to think, not only do I hate Trump, but I actually think that I will accomplish something. So I think it's very important for us to say that this is part of a larger effort to change the narrative and to point to the fact that the US is a belligerent, warmongering force in the Middle East, and that Israel would not exist. It's an illegal, immoral, out of control government. And frankly, you pointed in the beginning to the murder of this high official. He was the chief negotiator. So talk about, here we are, most of us who are of any goodwill at all, wishing for, hoping for, striving for a ceasefire. The main negotiator, you negotiate in one day, within 1 day, and you kill him the next day. It's just extraordinary. And the fact that the US has had a non-response to that is extraordinary. So I think we need to be in the streets, but I think we should be saying to ourselves, what is it we're trying to accomplish? I want us to accomplish a much broader audience for an understanding of what Israel is in reality and what the US role is in the Middle East as a war-making power.
Thank you.
Well, hang on. So Smoggy Froggy says, imagine being at that age and being this concerned with things that will be inconsequential for him at all, just left for all of us to deal with. That is the main problem with boomers. Well, okay, but here's the thing. Bill Ayers has been involved in the far left his entire life. This is Bill Ayers' identity. This is what he knows. And this is one of the thing about far left activists that I don't think a lot of people on the right, although the Groypers might be the exception to this, I think the Groypers kind of do this too. A lot of people on the conservative right, just your like average MAGA boomers, they don't see activism in politics or fighting for things that they care about to be an innate part of who they are. It's just something they maybe kind of do, and they scream about it on Twitter and they might complain about it to their friends, but it's not an innate part of their identity. This is why conservatives have no principles. This is why conservatives are so easy to give up. They give in on everything. They don't take ethical stances because a lot of them, and if you feel insulted right now, I'm probably not talking about you, but I'm talking about in general. Like people, the reason why conservatives are getting behind Donald Trump as a moderate Democrat rather than demanding that Trump return to his policies of like 2016 is because they don't have ethical principles. This is not an innate part of who they are. For them, it's about tribalist warfare. For the far left, this is an innate part of their identity. They really believe this. They live it. They breathe it. They build their entire lives around it. They only talk to other far left people. They only read far left opinions and books. And so the reason you see Bill Ayers still fighting for this stuff, even though he's well into retirement age at this point, is that this is who he is. This is what he believes in. And this is why the left wins, because they have people that are that passionate that instead of just kind of like sinking off into retirement, be like, no, I'm not going to go to those protests. They're still out there doing their thing. This is why they win.
Yeah, I think I completely agree with your analysis about Harris, Medea. I think this has been her administration and she has not wavered from it an inch. However, I do think this.
Well, so actually, so at one point you say I'm 8. Well, he's not quite 8,000 years old. It's time for some other lefty who's 18 to take over. So they actually talked about this in relation to the Columbia University protests, where the students at Columbia were bringing on these like conservatives called them like outside agitators, right? They were bringing on these people to Columbia's campus who were not students, and most of the time the people they were bringing onto campus were older. And how the left views it is the younger activists actually love the older people being involved because they want to learn from them. They learn protest tactics from them. They're there as mentors. They want to make those connections because they want to talk with them and bounce ideas off of them when they have it. So on the left, they view older people being involved as something they're like, oh my God, there's a resource of people who have been down this road and they might know stuff that I don't know. And they actually they hold classes with them. Like they'll sit out on like the campus lawn and talk to them about like when I was your age and this here's what we did. You remember when the students took over that dorm at Columbia? They literally had older activists saying, here's how you take over the dorm at Columbia. Here's how you block the doors. Here's how you stage this whole thing. Here's how we want people lining up by race and all that stuff. And so they view it as a feature and not a bug. And, maybe that's something the Groypers can learn from. And it's not that I don't think, I think that the Groypers are an interesting thing because I really do believe that I believe the movement that Nick is trying to build should be led by young men. I really do. I think it's a really good opportunity for younger men to step up and to figure this stuff out. And I think that Nick and the Groypers do a great job. And it's obvious they're figuring it out on the fly, but they're figuring it out. And I think it's a good thing. I do also think there's probably room, though, for incorporating people who are older who might have wisdom to say, have you guys thought about this? Have you guys thought about that? Have you guys thought about this other thing? Because that's what the left does, and that's what makes them more effective. So I don't know. It's not always a bad thing to have other people involved.
This is a real opportunity to put maximum amount of pressure on her in a very visible way and say, we are demanding that you and the DNC take certain positions, change direction, take a new path, move into something new. She's always saying, we're not going to go back. We're going to do something new. Here's something new. Immediate and permanent ceasefire, good faith negotiations, stop the arms aid immediately. massive humanitarian aid or whatever your list is. And it could be just one thing, but I think that's part of conveying the content of the message. And you have a tremendous kind of blank canvas when you get there to paint whatever words you want on it. And it will be watched all over the world. There's no question. So I don't have particularly high hopes that this will change her mind, but we did learn something from even the response of Nixon in the 60s and the 70s to massive demonstrations, which was they said they didn't care. Nixon was always out of the country when the large anti-war demonstrations happened. And then we read later in the Pentagon Papers and other revelations that he was hiding in a closet. And we know that the strength of these actions did affect the course of policy. He wanted to bomb North Vietnam. And what stopped him? Massive mobilization and realizing that public opinion would not stand for it. So I think you're in a very strong position here.
Yeah, Danica, we're kind of taking this away from you because we're so interested in what each other is saying. But I kind of look back and think about the Obama times, and people didn't want us to protest at the convention when, there was so much enthusiasm for Obama. And we felt that it was important to still be there with our message.
Yeah, I mean, Cookie Graper says, and this is a good point too. Meanwhile, like we were just talking about how the left, like younger people on the left embrace older people as mentors and they teach them how to do stuff. Meanwhile, the right shits on younger people. The right doesn't really want younger people involved. Like you can see, like the ineffectiveness of Turning Point USA demonstrates that clearly. The fact that they shit on the Groypers all the time, even they're the Groypers are the most highly engaged group of young people that the right has, and they shit on them all the time, and they insult them, and they smear them, and all this stuff. Yeah, you're absolutely right about that.
Messages of end the wars, bring the war dollars home, get the U.S., get money out of politics, all of these issues. And I feel similarly now with Kamala Harris that there is tremendous enthusiasm in the Black community, in the Asian Pacific community, in the women's community, and people who just, have a sigh of relief that it's not Biden and that perhaps we can stop Trump. But there has to be this voice that says, as you were saying, Eleanor, what is it that we're calling for? And as you say, Bill, what is it that we want the world to see? I mean, what we want the Democratic Party to see is that we will not support this candidate if she doesn't show herself to be different from the Biden administration, and that the Biden administration has some months right now to do something to stop this. And yes, the toughest one is the issue about weapons, because, it's not just the AIPAC and the Israel lobby and all of that. It's the weapons industry too. And, they want to keep this flow of weapons going. But our major demand is stop the weapons. Now, when you're in Congress and you talk about stop the weapons, it's a non-starter for the vast majority. And they say to us, at least distinguish between offensive and defensive weapons, because we're not going to leave Israel defenseless against Iran and all of its enemies in the region. So I can guarantee that the Harris policy is not going to be an end to weapons to Israel. But we have to push for that, and we have to push for this immediate and permanent ceasefire. And the things that you said, Eleanor, are the...
Hang on. None of this matters. None of this matters. None of this matters at all. 2 months ago, she wasn't the candidate. Now she is. She's a younger woman, Black. That's the candidate. You guys can cry manufactured enthusiasm. No one liked her before. They like her now. And their votes are not going to count any less just because they didn't like her before. It doesn't make a difference. Before they thought they were running a corpse. When that corpse before they thought they were running a corpse and they thought it was absolutely certain that he was going to lose. And now they've got a young Black woman that isn't a corpse that makes Donald Trump look old. And all their votes count nonetheless. So you guys can complain and whine about all this as much as you want. It makes no difference. Their votes still count.
The things, the humanitarian aid has to flow in there freely and immediately. But as Bill is making clear, the world is watching. And I think that is so important because they have to see that there is massive opposition in the streets and inside the suites, that we will just not let this be yet another convention. And that's why I love the comparison to 68. And we'll let you take it away, Danica, again.
Yeah, I mean, just being part of the younger cohort, sort of getting the city ready for the protests on the DNC, it's like something that we are hyper aware of is 68, and it's something we've constantly been thinking about and talking about. So I'm interested to hear from you, Bill, about, we've identified sort of this DNC as a leverage point, something to take advantage of, especially with sort of the internal political strife in the Democratic Party, and just changes generally. So, Bill, I guess what was the North Star in 68, and like, do you guys think that you like what are the parallels that you're seeing now? And I guess for the people who are going to be in the streets again, I know you're joining us. What advice do you have? What are your hopes for it?
Well, first of all, you should know that I'm not one of these old people who's nostalgic for a ship that already left the shore. I do not look back and say, oh, those were the good old days. I'm living now. I'm looking forward. Doesn't mean we don't understand and stir up some things from our past, but I think that there's way too much romanticization of the 60s, the so-called 60s, which is mostly marketing. I mean, nobody in December 31st, 1969 looked at their watch and said, oh God, it's almost over, let's get out there. That never happened. So people don't live by decades. It didn't happen like that. But I do think there's some important notions. And one is, I think of demonstrations like the one we're planning for Chicago now and like the one we did in Chicago in 68. I think we have a responsibility to know what our North Star is, and also to recognize that activism really can best be understood in a pedagogical way. That is, did we teach and did we learn? If you think about Martin Luther King, the great iconic activist of the 50s and 60s, King was a public.
Isn't that an interesting way to think about activism? Put aside what you might think of Bill Ayers for a second. Isn't that an interesting way to think of activism? What did we teach and what did we learn? Again, this is what makes the left so effective, is they're constantly, they have goals with things. It's not just about like stirring up drama. It's not about any of that. And they have short-term goals for things. In this case, it's preventing, it's trying to get the US to stop giving weapons to Israel and things like that. But what Bill Ayers says, that's a higher level view. What did we teach people in our activism and what did we learn so that we can do things better next time?
Educator. That's what he did. He created conditions where we could see what was going on and we could see beyond our blind spots. What happened in 68 in Chicago was that we had kind of two goals. And I was an officer of Students for Democratic Society. We were trying very hard to mobilize lots and lots of people to come. It was surprisingly a relatively small demonstration. You may not know that because the mythology of it, I mean, I've never met anybody my age who didn't say they were there, but they couldn't have all been there because it was a pretty small demonstration. But there were two things we wanted to do. One is we wanted to bring 1 million people to Chicago. And on that, we failed miserably. The other thing we wanted to do is we wanted to have as our audience, not the political class, but kind of the biggest audience was the whole world is watching. But the smaller audience was people like the young people who were coming to the convention.
Hang on, Andre. Thank you for being a member of the channel for 2 months. I appreciate it. Socialists want to genocide Trump. No, they don't, and won't consider themselves genocidal. I don't agree with your characterization. I'll read it, but I don't agree with your characterization. Socialists want to genocide Trump and won't consider themselves genocidal via socialist 100 million humans. Genocide's history. They hide it via their activism. They're not genocidal. This is a real, like, I'm actually really disappointed in this member chat from you, if I'm honest about it, because you've been watching my content long enough and you watch enough of it to really know better than this. Socialists aren't genocidal. They really aren't. And if you insist on demonizing your enemy like this, it just proves you don't really understand them. They believe that they are going to do it differently. They believe they're going to create a better world. They believe that the mistakes of the past are mistakes of the past that won't happen because the United States is a fundamentally different country than China was, or Venezuela was, or Cuba was, or any of those things. We've talked about this a million times. And so demonizing them and saying they just want to murder everyone, it's disappointingly basic. I appreciate you supporting my work. I appreciate you supporting my channel. I hope you rise above this.
Hoping that a peace plank could be won, or hoping that Eugene McCarthy could get some votes. And we wanted to educate them. So I think we should always have as a goal, what are we teaching and what are we trying to learn? If we're teaching and learning, it's good. If we're just interested in either numbers.
I'm not, by the way, saying socialists are good. And I'm not, by the way, saying I don't think that their ideas are going to lead to starvation. I do think their ideas are going to lead to starvation. I just want to be intellectually honest about what their motivations are. And I don't believe that running around demonizing them and calling them genocidal is actually productive. So it's not that I don't believe their ideas are going to lead to starvation. I absolutely do. But that's not their goal. That's not what they're trying to do. And they have reasons for not, they have reasons for that. And again, and this isn't a discussion about whether or not they're right or wrong. It's a discussion about what are their real motivations. How do they really see the world? Hey, I appreciate it. Thank you. And I do appreciate you supporting the channel.
Or kind of how we looked on TV, we're missing the point. We're missing the boat completely.
Thank you, Bill. And I know Eleanor and I had a conversation about, I think, the anti-war movement as a whole in the Vietnam era. And Eleanor, I loved your thoughts on this, so I wanted to bring it up in this discussion, but not just understanding the DNC as one single point of leverage and one single point of mass mobilization, but as a jumping off point. And we talked about, what you wish had gone better in the Vietnam era and like what you wish the movement had accomplished. So I'm just wondering if you could share your thoughts on, building sustainability in the movement, and what do you think our opportunities are here this summer?
That's a great question.
Hang on, we got a question from Azur Wing, and he's such a great supporter. I will answer any question that he wants. What do you think the end goal is for leftists and their unholy alliance with Islam when one is ultra-conservative and the other is completely antithetical to that? I don't think leftists do have an unholy alliance with Islam. I think that I don't buy into this characterization of leftists having an unholy alliance with Islam. The issue that leftists have with Israel and what Israel is doing in Gaza has nothing to do with Islam at all. I actually think this is more of a contrived issue on the conservative right than it is. Like, I actually see a lot more just irrational hatred towards Islam on the conservative right than I see love and embrace of Islam on the left. The reason that they're doing this is because they believe that the Palestinians are oppressed and the Israelis are the oppressors. Has nothing to do with Jewish, has nothing to do with Muslim, has nothing to do with any of that. And so, and the same thing with Queers for Palestine. Queers for Palestine is not about, they would throw gay people off roofs. That's not what it's about. It's about solidarity with the oppressed. And so, I don't know. I think that the left will always take the side of anyone that they believe is oppressed. I think they will always be against anyone they believe is in the oppressor role. And if it were to flip someday with, if it were to flip someday and they started doing activism against Muslims, which I don't think is going to happen anytime soon, because there's also the issue of Muslims being brown, and we have to acknowledge that. I think that they would be against them too if the Muslims were going in. Let's think out of a scenario here. Let's think out a scenario. Well, actually, now that I'm thinking about this, I was about to say if the Muslims went in and started taking over indigenous land, then the left might be against them. But I mean, look at what's going on. So I'm actually rethinking this on the fly now. Look at what's going on in the UK with mass Muslim immigration, and the left does nothing, and the left just lets them do whatever the F they want. So, hey, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I need to think about that a little bit more. Thank you for the question.
I think that's always the challenge, right? We've now lived through, even in the last few years, several rounds of incredible mass, more or less spontaneous uprisings, including the Occupy movement, the movement for Black Lives, the Palestine movement, which has been,
Spontaneous uprisings. They weren't
you know, it's
spontaneous.
inconceivable, even
Nothing
2
was
years
spontaneous
ago,
about it.
that there would be such a broad-based, enthusiastic, committed support for the Palestinian people in opposition to Israeli actions, as turned out. And of course, it wasn't actually spontaneous.
Yeah, that
because
was a good question.
organizations
I'm
like
going to think
yours
about that one.
and Students for Justice in Palestine and JVP and others have been doing the hard work on the campuses, in the dorms, local demonstrations, marches, all that education work Bill was talking about. So
By the way, just as proof that the left doesn't hate Jewish people, Jewish Voices for Peace is one of their favorite organizations and Jewish Voices for Peace is made up of Jewish people, because the Jewish Voices for Peace is against, they're anti-Zionist, they're against what Israel's doing in Palestine. So this is not about Jewish people. It never has been about Jewish people. It's purely about Israel are the settler colonists who took over the indigenous land and privatized it under the oppressive force of capitalism. The Palestinians are leading a glorious revolution to decolonize their land. That's all it is.
So I think part of the question is, how do you sustain momentum, and what do you want to take from a period of high momentum? And I think if you can, you want to take organization. You want to take some forms of holding on to the level of unity that you have in your own group and with other groups, trying to push it forward, keeping track of everybody, building on it, reflecting on it afterwards, and continue to celebrate the victories and to build on them. And I also think something that I think we were less successful with in the 1960s, 70s was really reaching out and building alliances with other movements. And today I'm thinking about the movement against climate change and the environmental movement. And I think there's a moment here which is actually the negotiations on climate change have really ground to a halt. These critical annual summit meetings on climate have absolutely stopped moving forward. And right now, I think one of the main reasons is that the role of the US in supporting Israel has polarized the world so dramatically that the main countries who should be
Really?
negotiating.
Really? All right. All right. We might listen to that tomorrow.
For our survival on this planet are facing each other across battle lines. And I think the Biden administration has a lot of responsibility, and the Democrats have a lot of responsibility for that worldview that pushes them in that way. And I don't see a lot of signs that we can hope for something different from Harris, but I do think it's an opportunity for us to say a lot of lives hang in the balance here, and these issues are interrelated, and building across those movements, as you do with the feminism of Code Pink and other, and the peace movement of that Code Pink is part of. But I think it's also an opportunity to reach out to other parts of different movements.
I think this is such an important point, because if you think about what it takes to build a movement, not just an organization, not a campaign, but an actual irresistible social movement, it takes changing the narrative, a huge change in the narrative of whatever issues we're talking about. But then it requires kind of connecting the issues. So, Eleanor, I'd love you to say a word about war and warming, or the question of the Pentagon as a fossil fuel burner, or the question of what single thing could the Biden administration do? They get a lot of praise for their environmental work. What's one single thing they could do to actually leap the world forward in terms of climate change.
I will say I'm wearing my Code Green shirt today. Yeah, well, as you know, I think the most important thing that could be done.
What code should my color be? I feel like I need to have like a code color. What do you guys think? Can't be code pink. Can't be code green. They already took that. I don't want to be associated with like, I don't want to be like too close to like Adam Green or anything like that. Code red? Fucking obviously it should be code red. All right. See, I was thinking like purple was my first inclination, but like purple doesn't roll off the tongue like red does. All right, code red it is, fine.
To move the world forward on climate is to stop the war in Gaza, the single most important thing, because of the ways it poisons the entire universe of global negotiation.
Code mauve.
on the issue of climate. And
Yeah.
it has really, which have really ground almost to a halt in terms of meaningful negotiations. And also, you know, what they call the boot print, the carbon boot print of the military is enormous. You know, the US military is the largest consumer of fossil fuels in the world, just that one organization. And the climate impact of the war, of course, the human impact is the main thing we're focused on. But our carbon impact is enormous. And a lot of it comes from the flights of, the bombing raids and the import of weapons for the United States. All these things really add up. And it's just a way to say, hey, you people who are worried about climate, come with us to Chicago and let's put that, put those feet on the ground too. And let's do this together because the issues are really, really profoundly linked.
Well, I just want to chime in here to say that I've been really disappointed that there are so many people and organizations in the climate movement that haven't jumped aboard. We were trying to get them on board about Ukraine because, you talk about wars that could lead to a nuclear apocalypse. Well, there's one right there with the US involved in this war with Russia. And yet we had the hardest time getting the environmentalists to come out and support a call just for a ceasefire negotiation.
By the way, James Lindsay did a podcast about a year ago, and we watched it on the channel. And this is when I started realizing how full of shit James Lindsay. Oh no, it wasn't a year ago. It was probably like actually 6 to 8 months ago, something like that. Anyway, this is when I started really realizing how full of shit James Lindsay was about the left, because James Lindsay was interviewing with this like British guy, and he was talking about his ideas about critical immigration theory. And part of his theory is that no one on the left would support Ukraine because Ukrainians were white. And so they weren't worthy of support, and no one on the left would support Ukraine under critical immigration theory because they were just way too white for that. Well, I had just gotten back from the Socialism 2023 conference that I went undercover at, and there were so many people there who were protesting like in favor of Ukraine. They had there were at least 3 or 4 different protest groups that had full tables at the conference. They were like handing out all this literature for supporting Ukraine and all that. And so I bring this up because this lady just said, we tried to get everyone involved in supporting Ukraine and it was just really, really hard. So James Lindsay is full of shit. He doesn't know what he's talking about. If anyone hears James Lindsay talking about critical immigration theory, it was so easy to debunk that it wasn't even funny. And yes, the left does support Ukraine. The left hates Russia. Russia is a nationalist state. Of course the left hates them.
And when you look at the US provocations against China right now, that is also devastating.
Utterly devastating.
Absolutely. Yes. And all of the maneuvering that the US is doing militarily to surround China and threaten China is another area where the environmentalists should be right there with us saying this is unacceptable. And when you talk about negotiations, Eleanor, I mean, we need to cooperate with China, as you well know. And yet we were in a hearing yesterday where the senators as well as the Deputy Secretary of State
Yep,
were
that's
talking
true.
about how horrible it is that China is at the table when there are negotiations happening about Ukraine, for example, that they shouldn't be allowed to be there. And China is now coming forth as
True.
not only a
Correct.
superpower, but also one involved in negotiating. They brought the different factions of the Palestinian groups together. They negotiated a deal between Saudi Arabia and Iran, which the U.S. has said, you know, how dare they kind of come into our area and try to make peace. And the Chinese have been very involved trying to come to a way to bring Russia and Ukraine to the peace talks. So I think that the U.S. push for wars in general, and then, of course, the massive, massive military budget. I mean, think of what we could do with just taking some hundreds of billions of dollars away from the Pentagon and putting it into the climate issue. And so these are issues why we need to be together as a movement of movements. And Danica, I have a question for you as someone who's been involved in these coalitions leading up to the DNC. How involved are the environmental groups in the upcoming protests?
They're there. I'm trying to think. There's a few involved in the coalition. You know, I do think the Palestinian orgs have taken lead in in facilitating the coalition, which I think is completely makes sense. And I anticipated them being there in large numbers, but then when we were at the Republican convention and they weren't there, it felt kind of strange, and I started thinking it might be a little different for Chicago too, just because, you know, the Republicans very obviously don't care about the climate. And I just expected the environmentalist groups to be there. And so now that the contradiction isn't as stark as like a lot of the liberal environmentalist groups want to say, I don't know how many of them will be there. I hope they join us, especially the more progressive ones that are a little bit more keyed in. And to be part of the coalition, you know, our main demand is Palestine. So if they don't agree with it, they probably wouldn't have signed on to the coalition, which is, you know, a little bit encouraging. And I'm wondering, you know, Bill, you were talking about who our audience is, and it's not the people in the convention. It's, you know, the people around the world, but also trying to sort of, at least at Code Pink, we've been trying to sharpen these contradictions a little bit, and it's especially relevant for the DNC because, like I said, at the Republican convention, they don't care about climate. They don't claim to, so we don't really have to draw that comparison there. But you know, at the Democratic National Convention, there is that thing where they're posturing across so many different issues that they don't actually in practice do anything about. So I'm wondering if this is a question for all three of you, and I do want to encourage, again, people to put questions in the Q&A section. If you have any, please do. We'll move into those shortly. But if you all had a similar experience dealing with this sort of cognitive dissonance in the Vietnam era, and if you were successful in drawing those contradictions, or just any advice for now.
Well, I don't know that I have any advice, but I will say that this is what movement building looks like. They're always coming together and coming apart, and it's never smooth, and it's never easy, and it certainly wasn't smooth and easy then. I mean, one of the things that was remarkable in the '68 convention is that when we went into it, the main energy of it was mostly young people, mostly students, mostly white people. And yet the civil rights movement was exploding all around us. And then in the third or fourth day, down Michigan Avenue comes a mule train with Reverend Abernathy leading the march. Here comes, the comedian Dick Gregory leading a march. And it felt so right and so important. But for a couple of days, we were a little freaked out that we were not going to be a unifying force, but we were going to be separate movements. And those things I think are quite natural. The one thing I'd like to, I don't want either of you to be discouraged about the difficulties of building these coalitions. And the one thing I'd like to, I don't think we really disagree, but maybe a little struggle around rhetoric. I don't
struggle.
think there's one perfect thing to do. And I don't think the proof of your commitment is being in the streets. I mean, I think you guys are masters of it. And I'm always right there because I have a genetic flaw that makes me go into the street when anything is happening. I just automatically find myself in the street. But that's not true for everybody. And it's not the most important thing to do. When you think about a movement like the Civil Rights Movement or like the anti-Vietnam War movement, which was not as successful as, and we could talk about its failures because they were massive. But what I think is important is that one of my brothers was in the service trying to organize a servicemen's union in a military base. One of my brothers joined the Democratic Party trying to build a peace wing within it. You know, there were many things that people could do: organizing, research, writing. Right now, I know high school teachers who are trying to get their whole student body researching Gaza, researching genocide, researching Israel. This is good work. This is important work. And if they're not in the streets, I'm not going to hate them for it.
We don't hate anybody who doesn't come out in the streets, Bill. I totally agree. And yet we do need some numbers.
Of course.
Especially after the pathetic showing of opposition at the RNC. You know, it's interesting, just this week, the Sunrise Movement that I haven't seen in Congress in quite a long time just came out and did a terrific action at J.D. Vance's office. And I thought that was wonderful. I'm delighted when I see any movements coming out anywhere or any groups. And it's so important that we look for all of these avenues to make our voices heard. Let's remember that the biggest voice is money. And that is what is driving our system, whether it's big oil or big pharma or the weapons or these lobby groups like AIPAC. They are driving our system. And so, you know, if we are to be the people power, the people's voice has to be heard, whether that's in the streets or any other means to get our voices heard. But let's not deny that being in the streets is a very important tool that we have and that we must utilize when there are opportunities like the DNC. And the DNC really is a unique opportunity to do it. And I just hope as many people who are listening, watching, will get enthused about coming to Chicago if they don't already have plans to do that.
But your point about the environmental groups, you know, feeling like, well, why go to the Republican convention? That could also be true for many other people, because Trump's, I mean, if your audience is the Republican political class, they've already said that what Netanyahu should do is, quote, finish the job. So we already know where they are. They're with the genocide unequivocally. And I think that's maybe one reason that people weren't there as much. But I think, you know, Danica, you referenced an insider-outsider kind of approach. I think there are going to be delegates who are from the uncommitted in Michigan and Wisconsin. That's thrilling. I think some people from the squad will be advocating, and I think that will be thrilling. So that happened very much in '68, that there were people on the inside. And I mentioned, you know, that we failed to get millions of people, but what we succeeded in was showing the system for what it was. It was a militaristic response to protesters who simply wanted their voices.
I just want to point this out, where like Bill Ayers has said several times, like, we failed at getting us the number of people we wanted. We failed. In 1968, he's referring to. He talked about how, like, everyone says that they were at the 1968 protest, but yet he knows, because he was there, that it was a smaller protest, so not everyone could have been there. Can we just talk about what it means to fail? Like, what does that actually mean? We failed? And did he really fail? Because they're talking about the 1968 protests. What is it? Like 78, 88, 98, 2008, 2018. Like 50 years later. They're talking about the 1968 protests literally 50 years later. Like, that's not a failure. And so I guess I say that because sometimes, you know, people think because you don't have millions of people or even hundreds of thousands of people, I think sometimes people think that's a failure. But even with smaller groups, you can still create something that is iconic and legendary and will live beyond you. You can do that with even smaller groups. I mean, listen, when the Columbia University protesters took over that Heinz Hall or whatever, they created an iconic moment. There was, what, a couple hundred of them? Maybe not even. There were, like, I think 300 people arrested that night. So we're not even talking about 1,000 people, but they created an iconic moment that has influenced culture, that's influenced music, that is still influent. Like, people are still inspired by that takeover. It inspired other groups to take over other buildings. So a lot of times what the left does is they may wish more people were on their side, but they're very aware of creating these iconic moments. And I think that's something we can learn from, because, you know, I perceive, like, people who watch my content and are interested in this sort of thing, like, we're the counterculture. These guys are the culture. The left may not think they own the culture, but they obviously own the culture. We are the counterculture. We have to be scrappy. We are the underdogs in so many respects. There aren't enough people who are doing this stuff. There aren't enough people who are willing to put themselves out there. But just because we don't have the numbers that we would like, that doesn't mean we can't create iconic moments and iconic things that can live beyond us and that can inspire other people. It's not always about the numbers.
To be heard, to stop a genocide. And what did they
Actually, hang on. Let me get into this Zoom. Let me start to switch gears, because, guys, if you just joined us, we are actually going to be going inside a live organizing call in about 5 minutes, which this is like an impromptu thing. This is a recording of an organizing call that happened a couple weeks ago, but we have a live one that we're getting into today. And I just need to set a couple things up. I didn't realize we were that close to 7 o'clock. I just need to set a couple things up real quick. I need to change my sound settings. Hang on. I want to get into the Zoom. I want to make sure everything works. Test. Oh, shit. I just saw a big super chat come in. Hang on. Test. Can you guys hear me? I think you can. Mad Hatter! I haven't donated in a while. Here's some money for your time. Thank you, Dr. K. Thank you, Mad Hatter. I really do appreciate you. Thank you so much for the very generous super chat. Let's add that to the total. All right. Let me get into this Zoom and just see what's what with this Zoom. Guys, who here has never been to a spy stream before? Let me know in the chat if you've never been to a spy stream before. Usually spy streams are supporter only. I very rarely do spy streams that are public, but this is an impromptu spy stream because we found out about it last minute. So, all right. Hang on. I'm trying to find my spy stream guide and my search function is not working. I don't know why my search function isn't working. Never works. Things never work when I want them to work. They always work when I don't need them and never work when I want them to. Isn't that always the case? Spy stream guide. I will make you work, computer, and you will like it. All right, let me pull up this little helpful handy dandy guide as we are preparing to enter our live spy stream training. Now my computer is just completely shut down. This is great. Okay, hang on. Let me show you this. Okay. If you have never been to a spy stream before, you are in for a treat. What we are doing tonight is we are watching a live training. Yes, we are all going undercover. Snitches get stitches. Don't tweet this out. Don't tell anyone. We are going inside a live training. I'm going to repeat. This is a live. I do not know what they're going to say. I do not know what they're going to do. They might not say anything interesting at all. We have certainly done spy streams where they're really effing boring. But they might also say the crazy quiet part out loud too. So this is a private training. We don't know what they're going to say. We don't know what they're going to do. We're going to listen to see what happens when they think people like us are not listening. I will not do commentary over the training because I actually want to hear the training, and this video is going to constitute my recording of the training. And so that's that. But I will type comments in the chat. And if it's an appropriate time, I may display the comments on the screen just so people can see them. If it's not an appropriate time, I may not. But I do want to encourage everyone to please chat in during the training. Share your thoughts in the chat because they can't hear the chat or anything like that. And they won't be able to hear me either. But like, I don't want to speak over them during the training because we are going to be recording it. All super chats will be displayed on screen at some point. They may not be displayed when they are sent in, but if you guys do feel inclined to super chat me, I will honor the super chats. It may just be after the training is over because, again, we are recording the training and I appreciate everyone's cooperation. I've been reaching out to several YouTube personalities about covering this information, but it's like beating my head against the wall. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yes, it is like beating your head against the wall, isn't it? I feel your pain. I feel it every day of my life. Anyway, let me get up this Zoom and everyone just gotta be quiet. Shh, everyone quiet. All right, they're not letting us in yet. I'm waiting. Guys, please mount the like button if you have not mounted the like button yet. I would really appreciate it. We're just waiting to be added. We're just waiting. Hey, thank you, Termite. Thanks for becoming a member. I really do appreciate it. Guys, if you're on Twitter, please go and share my tweet about this.
Hello. And maybe, yeah, we need to not break her of that habit. That's him.
Hi, everyone. Welcome.
Hi.
Hello. We're going to wait like 2 minutes, 3 minutes for people to join, and then we'll get started, okay?
Particularly low-income Black communities.
Hi, everyone. We're gonna get started. If you guys just want to introduce yourselves in the chat, I see a lot of people are doing that already. Feel free to put your name, your pronouns, where you're calling from, and which days you'll be in Chicago for the convention, so we can get like a head count, I guess, of like who's gonna be here on what day. But let's get into it. We have a few things to go over, some very important information.
I'm in a Zoom.
If you guys could stay muted, please, I would appreciate that. Yeah, we have some things to go over. We will send a follow-up with this information, but if you guys can just like write it down just to make sure you guys don't forget it somewhere where you're not going to lose it. Maybe your notes app. But we're here today. This is our last call before the DNC. It's in less than a week. That's exciting in a way, also kind of daunting in a way, because it's like this huge event where we have these really big demands. And there's a lot that we're going to be doing. So I really hope you guys are going to bring your energy. Chicago always has a lot of energy, so we're expecting you guys to match it. We have a huge Palestinian population here. But you know, we have a lot that we're going to be doing less than a week from now. So I really hope everybody is prepared. And we're just going to go over some things today. Yeah, so we can go to the DNC and bring our message of peace, a feminist anti-war organization like Code Pink. You know, we're always at these events every 4 years. And this year is going to be no different. And I'm sure a lot of you kind of want to be on the same page of like, you know, we all know why we're here, right? We want to end the genocide in Gaza, stop U.S. arms sales to Israel, end U.S. militarism. But some of you might want to know more, or just like have, I guess, more, be more well-versed in what our demands are and why we're there. So we're just going to share in the chat some of our talking points in our messaging, just so everybody here kind of understands our message together, right? Like what vibe are we bringing? And I want everybody to be on the same page and share those values. But you know, you might have media approach you, you might have you know, some people want to talk to you about why you're there. So this will be good to just like reference. I would take a look at it beforehand, because you probably don't want to be reading it while you're talking to somebody. But yeah, all that's to say, we're not kind of like controlling why everybody's there or what you will say, because everybody has like their own, you know, unique reasons for being at the DNC. But this is just to kind of like help folks out who know what they believe, but like maybe they, you know, need some help articulating it. And so you guys know like why we're there as Code Pink, and sort of what you guys are representing. But yeah, so it's in the chat. I think Melissa dropped it in the chat. Thank you. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to email her. But you know, very, very straightforward things. Okay, so let's get into details. I'm going to give you guys dates, times, locations. So please pay attention, because it's going to be really important that you guys have this information. So there's going to be marches on a few days. The 18th, which is Sunday, Monday the 19th, Wednesday the 21st, and Thursday the 22nd. So there are marches every day of the Democratic National Convention, except the 20th, and there's also a march the day before. So August 18th, and you all feel free to join us at all of these marches, or at the, you know, the first march, the last march, whatever you guys have the capacity for. But I do think that if you have time for one march, the one on August 19th is probably going to be the biggest one. So if you can only come to one day, I would encourage you to go that day. But let's start with the first march, August 18th. That is the march with Bodies Outside of Unjust Laws. And we're going to, that march starts at 5 p.m. and we're going to meet at Michigan and Wacker. You'll see us with all the pink and like big bloody hands. So it'll be pretty easy to spot us. It's not going to be as big as that, the march the first day of the DNC. So we'll be pretty easy to spot. It's not going to be anything too crazy. And yeah, so that's the first day, August. 18, Sunday. And then the next day, which is the first day of the Democratic National Convention, is August 19th. That Monday is the first march on the DNC. This is like with the DNC coalition. This is like the march that you guys are probably imagining, you know, when you join this call, when you've been on our prep calls. That one starts at 9 a.m. is when we're all going to meet because, you know, we want to make sure we have like a good spot in the park. There's going to be a ton of people. So, you know, we want to give you guys a decent window of time to get there. But if you guys could get there as early as possible, so 9 a.m. being the ideal time. But I think all the way up until like 10:30ish, you guys will be okay. But definitely wouldn't encourage anybody to get there later than that. The park is going to fill up fast. We're expecting like a small city, basically, in this park. But don't worry, it's big. There's a lot of space. So we are going to be meeting in Union Park. I'm going to actually show you guys exactly where on this map, and we'll send it out to you guys too, so you can reference it. Can everybody see the map? I think you can. So right here is the Union Park Field House, and this like little blue rectangle here is the pool. We're gonna meet right in front of that, and there's a fence there, so you know, you guys will see a sign. Again, you guys will see the pink. It's very, very easy to spot. It's one of the perks of Code Pink. So the stage, this red line here is actually going to be where the stage is. So we'll be right here on the side of the stage so that we have, you know, a good spot for when like things pick up, when the rally starts. So yeah, just to give you guys a little visual right here, this in front of this pool. And if that changes, we'll let you guys know. So it's really important that you guys are checking your email, that you are in our Signal group chat so that if there's any changes to this information, you hear about it right away. Okay, so next day, August 21st. This is Wednesday. So we're skipping a day in the marches. This march is also going to be at Union Park. What's really great is all the marches except for the one on the 18th are at Union Park. So you won't have too many places to remember. And we're always going to be meeting up at the same spot in front of the pool. So you'll always be able to find us there. That one starts at 3:30. So if you guys can get there at like 3 o'clock, but we'll message in the Signal group when exactly we're all going to meet up. This one, again, it will be a pretty large march, but it hasn't had as much promotion as the others. So it'll be a little bit smaller than the one on the 19th. And then the last day, August 22nd, same thing, Union Park. We're all going to meet up there at 2 p.m. right in front of the pool. And yeah, we'll march together. And those days there'll be a rally, then a march, just so you guys have an idea of like what type of physical capacity you'll be using. So we'll be in the park for a little bit, maybe standing, maybe sitting. And then we'll be marching all together for a bit. So just to give you guys an idea of like the physical capacity that's going to take. And I see that the schedule is in the chat. If you guys want to copy that down anywhere, like I said, you guys are going to get this in your email. So no need to worry too much about, you know, if you miss it, but it's always good to have it written down. Okay, that's all the details for the marches that are going to be happening during the DNC that you guys can join us for. I'm going to pass it to Danica to go over some of the roles that we talked about in our prior meetings.
Hi, everyone. I am so excited to see you all. Not even next week if we're seeing you on Sunday. So it's approaching really, really fast. And I can't wait to be in the streets with all of you. And if you were in Chicago and were at the show last night at the Lincoln Lodge, thanks for coming. I hope you had a nice time. So there's a lot of moving parts during a march. And we need all hands on deck for a few reasons. Like we have marshals that Grace is leading, and I think she can talk about that in a second. And the marshals will keep us together. And everyone else, we need help holding the banners. We need help holding these big bloody hands that we'll be marching with. And we made so many signs. So I think we'll have ample signage for folks, ample Code Pink signage. So don't worry about bringing anything unless you want to. We will have plenty of stuff. We have most of our signs on sticks, so they'll be raised really high with our feminist anti-war messaging. We'll have a few banners, so we'll need help with carrying the banners during the march. But there's there's one big role that I need help with for both of the marches, the 19th and the 22nd. And if you're coming on the 18th, maybe chime in the chat as well if you'd like to help me with this as well. But a sign distributor and collector. So this person, I would love someone that can be a little bossy with me, that can be a little loud and able to chase people down. Because we don't want people leaving with our signs, especially on Sunday when we have 2 other marches coming, right? Like we need to make sure we have our visuals because the point is to communicate our message to the people in and around the DNC, right? We need to have that messaging crystal clear and visible. So we don't want to lose any of our visuals for the march. Is there anyone who wants to help me on the 18th, 19th, or 22nd and being a sign distributor and wrangler? Tig, I know my partner in crime, that would be great. Is there one other person that would want to help me and Tig for the sign wrangling? Okay, someone said I can help on the 19th, but your name is my iPhone on Zoom, so I'm not sure who it is. But Grace is tracking that down. Cool. Yeah. Okay, I'm seeing a few people. I'm gonna put my email in the chat. I know a lot of you have heard from me before via email, so you have it. But if you want to help be my sign wrangler with Tig, please email me. I'll follow up with you tomorrow. And I'll coordinate and we can talk on the phone or something like that. Next, we need banner holders. We'll need a solid group of folks who are excited to march sort of at the front of the Code Pink contingent and hold the banner. We'll need a good handful of people. We had a few people sign up, I think, last time, which were Julian, Kareem, Saham, and Lindsay. So if there's anyone else who wants to hold banners, please put this in the chat. We'll rotate you out. If it's a long march and we're kind of unsure about the route as of right now, I believe, we can rotate people out, making sure you're not getting too tired. If you need a break, we'll have people step in, so don't stress about that. We'll make sure everyone's taken care of. Thank you for everyone saying to hold the banner. That's great. And then I think everyone else will have signs. Now, the Code Pink team in Chicago spent, I don't know how many hours. I genuinely don't know how many hours making the big bloody hands that we have. They're a little over 6 feet tall, but I promise you they will be the star of the effing show for the DNC march, and they'll be important to hold. And if 2 people want to be sort of the big bloody hand leads, please put yourself in the chat and I'll reach out to you. What this takes is, they're not very heavy, so not a lot of strength, but you do have to make sure that they don't switch like that. We need them like that. So if you can make sure the hands look correct, that's kind of the biggest thing there. And then if anyone has any mobility issues and wants to be part of the march but can't walk through the march and actually can't be part of the marching part, please put your name in the chat. We do sometimes need a standby person to stay at the park or stay at a nearby coffee shop. So if people get tired on the walk, if they don't want to complete the whole march, they can come back to you and they can have a Code Pink safe person to sit with. So if you would be interested in being a standby person and not able to walk around fully for the march, please let me know too. You can put that in the chat or email me. And we could also probably figure that one out day of if no one's here who wants to do that at the current moment. And then a media wrangler, we had a few people signed up. Ken and Joanna and maybe Ben. Melissa, do you want to describe this role really quick?
Yeah, so basically what it is just one to help me have like eyes and ears out for the media. And so, there's gonna be lots of people there and lots of media. We want to make sure that we're getting our message in front of the media. And so just need folks who can kind of like look out for them, maybe possibly run over to them and grab them and pull them to us, or pull somebody that's designated to be a spokesperson, take them over to them. It's mostly just kind of like, I just need eyes and ears to help me kind of locate the media. So whoever is willing to do that, it'd be greatly appreciated.
Thanks, Melissa. If you're interested in being the media, let's see, Lisa is offering. If we can follow up with you, Lisa, that would be great. And then if anyone has any, we don't need a ton of photographers. We have a lot of people taking pictures already. But if you have a nice camera, or if you are quick with your iPhone, I think this could be sort of on everybody, is taking as many pictures as possible, getting all the visuals, getting all the signs in. So please, if you have a nice camera, please bring it. We'll have a Google Drive of everything closer to the date. And then Tim, I have
Danica, can I add something here?
Yeah. Go ahead.
So yeah, we already have a few people signed up to get photos and videos, which is excellent. We definitely don't need everybody doing that, because we also want people like participating in the march and everything. During the march though, we will want to be like posting some updates and getting some things like pretty quickly. So I will be creating like a WhatsApp chat for people to contribute to that sort of stream. I only need like a handful of people. But if folks are interested in joining that, please note it in the chat and I will make sure to add you to the WhatsApp as long as you are already in our existing DNC group chat. And then if you have other pictures or camera pictures or things like that, we'll be sure to circulate like an upload link for those after everything. So just drop a note in the chat and I will be sure to add you.
Thanks, Tim. So that's all the roles I wanted to go over. I'll pass it to Grace to talk about marshals, but every role for this march is going to be super important. What marches are is like a communication tactic of how the public feels and what we want our messaging to be. So, whether you're a marshal who is keeping us organized and together and safe, or you are holding the big hands, or if you're holding a sign, every single role for this march is going to be super, super important. And I just wanted to thank you all, from the bottom of my heart, for being part of it, because it is, a super important moment to be a part of this movement. And I'm excited to march with all of you in a few days. But I'll pass it over to Grace.
Thank you. Sarah, I saw your note in the chat, and I think we talked yesterday. So I will talk to you about medic needs and all that good stuff. Because I know that the DNC March on the DNC Coalition is also looking for medics. So I'll DM you personally about that later. But my name is Grace. I am our lead marshal for the DNC. Right now we have about 7 or 8 marshals signed up, which is super amazing. We have a Signal chat. I don't think we need any more marshals, but if anyone is interested in being one, still let me know. Some people drop the day of and aren't able to make it. So if you were interested in being a marshal and you haven't said anything up until now, no worries. Feel free to drop your name in the chat, or you can email me here. But yeah, like Danica said, our job is just making sure everyone is organized and feels comfortable and safe while we're marching. I'm going to be leading our marshals for our contingent, our Code Pink contingent. The actual March on the DNC Coalition as a whole also has marshals, and they will be doing the same thing. There's going to be a lot more of them, obviously, so they will be tracking more of the pace of the march and what the front and the back looks like, all that good stuff. What we're doing as well, but on a much larger scale. So we have our tasks as just our own contingent needs. So yeah, we'll be facilitating the action as planned, keeping everyone safe, relaying any information. If you have any questions during the march about timing, about where we're going, if there's bathrooms along the way, please let me know. Daniel, that's awesome. Thank you for your email. And we will also have on all of our persons sunscreen, water, Band-Aids, all of that good stuff. So if you need it during the march, you can go up to a marshal specifically and they will give you that stuff. Also, during the march, if you, for whatever reason, need to leave, need to go back to Union Park early, need to change course in some way, let one of the marshals know, so we know not to be looking for you. But because one of the awesome things about being the Code Pink contingent is that we are a little bit smaller as opposed, obviously, to the entire march. So we'll be looking at all of us and making sure we're all safe. So if one person or if people go missing, we're like, oh my goodness, where did they go? So let us know ahead of time. We'll be at the front, the back, and the sides of the contingent. We'll have pink vests on, and we'll have walkie-talkies and backpacks full of stuff. But that also brings me to a point of wearing pink is, and I think Nora will talk about this a little bit later, but wearing pink is super important from a marshal standpoint, because again, we can be eyeing you and making sure that you're in our area and that you are safe and that you're okay. That's all I have to say. From a marshal standpoint, we're also meeting right after this on the same line. So if you are a marshal, stay on afterwards. I already told you, and we'll go through a little bit of preparation. But that is all I have from me.
Thanks, Grace. Okay, I'm just gonna go over a few notes on how you can prepare for the marches, just so you all feel like you have everything you need, just so we can prevent any anyone from getting hurt or too tired. So number one is to wear pink, obviously. One, so we can like identify you with us, but also so people coming to our group can like see that we're Code Pink. When there's like a bigger sea of pink, it's easier for people to find us. Another thing is to mask up if you want to, if you need to. There's a couple concerns. One is COVID. Obviously, it's there's going to be a lot of people. So if you want to protect yourself from COVID, I would wear a mask. Also, to protect yourself from media and the police, if that's a concern of yours, there's going to be a lot of pictures. So if you don't want to show up fully in them, I would mask up. Also, if that's a concern for you, I would probably cover more than just this part, maybe sunglasses too with the mask if you're worried about your identity. Another thing, like Grace said, we'll have sunscreen, but if you guys want to bring your own just to make sure that you always have it, it's going to be hot. Definitely do that. We'll have water, and the DNC coalition will also have water, but again, if you want to have just like a little water bottle as a backup, just to guarantee that you'll always have it on you. Something maybe to protect yourself from the heat, whether it's a visor, a hat, anything like that, an umbrella. Maybe not an umbrella, actually, if you're going to hold a sign, but just to keep in mind something to maybe like block you from the sun. It's going to be very hot and a little humid, so you guys have an idea of the weather. I would also bring a friend if you can. If not, maybe like also find somebody within our contingent that isn't walking with somebody. Of course, like we're going to be keeping an eye out for everybody, but there's like 63 people on this call, probably more people will be joining us in person. It's going to be a big crowd. So it's really helpful to just like find one person and like agree to look after each other in a sense, just so everybody's accounted for. And we also have like short list of like Chicago travel tips, just for those of you who are coming out of state, to make sure that you have everything you need to understand like public transportation, maybe places to go. So yeah, I would check that out and maybe have it like screenshotted or copy them down on your phone in case you don't have service. But those are just a few tips, a few ways to prepare. I'm sure a lot of you guys have been to protest marches before, so you already know this, but just a few reminders. And I'm going to pass it to Tim, who's going to go over some of our events that are happening during the DNC that are not marches.
Yeah, so of course, with all of us in town for this, it's like a great opportunity just to get together and gather and all sorts of other ways. And we're going to have a lot of time besides the marches. So we have a couple other things going on. First, I want to highlight on August 21st, which is Wednesday, I believe. Danica and Medea will be on a late show at the Lincoln Lodge, which is one of our hubs here in Chicago, and it'll be at 8 p.m. I hope, yes, it's in the chat somewhere, and I can put it in the chat again. But it'll be a lot of fun, just a conversation with them. I think it'll be a little funny, perhaps, and definitely check that out. You need tickets to go because that's how events of the Lincoln Lodge work. So make sure if you do want to go to get your tickets because there's limited space. Otherwise, the following day, on the last day, we'll be having a potluck. And that will be, I believe, prior to the march. So look out for details for that in the Signal chat. And then we also, there are definitely a couple other things that may come up that just aren't confirmed. So really paying attention to the group chat, paying attention, just being in conversation with people will be super vital for making sure you're up on what's happening, because I'm sure we'll have potentially some other places where people are gathering. But hope to see you all at those events as well as the marches.
Okay, thank you, Tim. Does anybody have any questions? Anything we talked about, anything related to the march? If you do, please raise your hand. Carol?
Yeah, a couple questions. I didn't catch the information about where to find out about transportation for people who are coming in from out of state. Where do we? It sounded like there was something available for us to look up.
Yeah, like if you want to prepare, like using Chicago's public transportation, we have a little like travel. Hold on, let me put the link in there. Oh, there it is. Grace put the link in the chat.
Okay.
Are you able to access that? Well,
One
also
more question. I have one more question. Will you have pink colored t-shirts that we could buy on the morning of the 19th?
I don't think we'll have them at the march, right, Danica?
We can
I can,
try.
yeah, we can.
Yeah,
If people order them ahead of time, I can bring them. They have to just tell me their size and which one they want, and I can do it there like I've done with most marches.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Good. All right.
I'm getting rid of it.
There we go. Grace put the link in the chat.
Would there be a use for this?
And then Ken, I think you had your hand up.
Yeah, I just saw a notice for an action on the 20th at the Israeli consulate from the Samadan network. Is Code Pink participating in that? Do you know? I think it's 7 o'clock on the 20th.
You said 9 o'clock on the 20th?
7 p.m. 7 p.m. on the
Okay,
20th.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for putting that on our radar. Any events that we'll be joining and we'll be a part of, because there's going to be like a lot of things going on. We'll let the group chat know on Signal. So if we'll be there, we'll let you know to join us. But thank you for making me aware of that. Steve? Steve? No? Anybody else have any questions?
No, really quickly, just on the t-shirts, if you order from our site, like just the regular Code Pink t-shirts, maybe email me, let me know that you did that, so I can just tell Jody which orders are for the DNC, so we don't get mixed up. So please email me if you order a t-shirt for the DNC, so we can have it brought from the LA store.
Or maybe just, it might be better, Danica, if everybody just let us know what they wanted and I can just do the collection there, because if it goes to the store, figuring that out might be hard.
Okay,
and then
I'll
they
make
can start
a
shipping and that's too much. So Yeah.
Okay, I can make a form that I'll send to everyone tomorrow morning. And if you want a t-shirt, fill out the form and then I'll send the form to Jody.
Or a
That's-
keffiyeh. Or a
Yeah.
keffiyeh.
Cool. That sounds good. So look
Hello?
out for the form if you want a t-shirt.
Can I ask
Hello,
something?
excuse me? Sorry, I had my hand raised, sorry. We're coming from Oakland on I-80 and then on I-70 through I-80 to Salt Lake City, I-70 to Kansas City and St. Louis, and then to Chicago. So we have some room if people want to hitch a ride. Also, we need to know about Solidarity Housing in Chicago.
Yeah. Thanks for letting people know your route. For housing, there's a lot of people coming in, and I think most people coordinating housing are pretty like full at this point. So it is a little tricky to find housing at this point. So if you do know people in Chicago, or you want to ask in the group chat if anybody has space, I would do that. Or like find different lodging, just because it is a little difficult now to connect people. I think most forms have like reached past their deadline. Daniel?
Yeah, I was wondering, is there going to be any camping? I mean, can people camping at Union Park? How's the parking? Is there going to be a place where people can camp for the demonstration, for the convention?
There's no set place like designated for people to camp at Union Park. I think most of the space will be filled up with people once like the marches get started, once people start coming for the marches.
I kind of lost my feed here.
So I think Penny, you had a question.
Yeah, I was just wondering, it occurred to me there are other events, and if we go to an event that Code Pink isn't officially going to, can we say we're with Code Pink, or do we want to go as individuals? Do you know what I'm getting at?
Like if you go to an event on your own?
Yes. Should we wear the Code Pink? Should we just, are we representing you at all times, or if you're not officially there, do we want to go as an individual and just, represent ourselves?
Oh, we hope that you're carrying pink and peace every day.
Right. I
we're
just
always,
want to know
feel
if
free to be pink and bring peace into the room.
Okay.
And yes, please. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah. The only issue that would come up, Penny, is if it's a electoral event with a political candidate. We can't be present at those kinds of things.
Oh, but you can be as an individual.
As an individual, just not as Code Pink.
I mean, just so you know, I go to political events all the time wearing my Code Pink t-shirt. It's especially if you're not on the team of Code Pink, you're welcome to be Code Pink, to be for peace, to be standing for it every day with every breath. And as long as you're not on the Code Pink team, you can do whatever you want with your t-shirts and your messagings.
So just a little bit more on that. You can go as an individual, you can wear a Code Pink t-shirt. If you are talking to the media about a political candidate at a political event, you cannot represent Code Pink.
Okay, I think I've got the nuance there. And it's important. That's why I asked. Thank you, everyone.
Melissa, did you want to?
Was gonna reiterate on the point of talking to the media. If you're at an event that Code Pink is not at officially, first we do, like Jody said, we encourage you to wear pink and we encourage you to be there with the message of peace, but try to avoid speaking on behalf of Code Pink if we're not there in some sort of official capacity, because the media likes to run with Code Pink things, and if we are unaware of what the event is, that could be kind of problematic. But everywhere we want y'all to be visible with pink and peace and all that good stuff.
Thanks. And yeah, and if you are going somewhere, like feel free to drop it in the signal chat, just like letting us know, letting everybody know that that's where you're going. Maybe people will want to join. Bruce, is that why you were raising your hand for that question you put in the chat? Is there a permit for the march? Yeah, this has been like a long fight with the city to get permit for the march. They did give a suggested route, but it's very short. It's like a mile long, and the march itself is going to be longer than that. So no, not technically, but that's totally normal for a march like this. And you know, the purpose is to march and to protest. So the DNC coalition has made it very clear that there's going to be a march, whether or not, you know, this permit gets approved. Tig, you had a question?
I'm just wondering, because I'm not in Chicago right now, and I do have the history of 1968 Chicago, which was truly amazing. But I'm just wondering, what is the temperature like in Chicago right now as far as, you know, a cooperation with the city? How are the police at reaction? Are there going to be police forces from, I know that there is 200 Capitol Police going to be there, at least. That's what I've heard. So, I mean, are they going to be doing like they did in Milwaukee, where they farm these guys in from all around the states? Do you know that at all?
Yeah, from
and just like, what does it feel like? I mean, do you feel like the city is pounding you, or do you feel like the city's going with you?
I think they're trying to like have us like, they're trying to like prevent us, I guess, from like feeling like empowered to like be super like loud and have our march. I mean, there's, you know, the police are definitely saying, you know, they're like dog whistles of they're going to basically like suppress protests, but they did say that they're going to make it a safe environment for people to protest and like exercise their free speech. But you know, I do feel like it's going to be kind of like the RNC and just kind of what it's like to protest for Palestine right now. You know, one day, exactly like Leticia said in the chat, sometimes they're super aggressive and they have like kettled us and arrested everybody, but this is going to be a really big march, and I do think that there's going to be power in numbers. So I would say that if you're joining the marches on the DNC on the 19th and the 22nd, those two like really big marches by the DNC coalition, you should be okay. Like there will be a lot of people, you know, enough for us to kind of be able to protect ourselves from any outside harm. But you know, it is a protest, so whenever you do protest, there's a safety risk, right? So I think just like staying observant. Melissa said don't hip check any Congress people. Yeah, definitely don't do that. And just like looking out for the people around you is like a good way for us to just like keep each other safe. But the police are unpredictable. Like they could be super angry, they could just like let us march, right? But there's going to be a lot of different police from outside of Chicago, and there's also going to be different agencies there, like Homeland Security, the Secret Service. So like we are going to be dealing with a lot of authorities. Did anybody else have any questions? If you are able to use the hand raise feature on Zoom, that's ideal, because then I could see you raising your hand. Sometimes if you just raise it in the camera, I don't pick up on that. Okay. Bruce said, what happens if we get tear gassed or police violence? I don't think, and I hope that won't happen, but yeah, always smart to like bring a mask, goggles if like if you want to go that far. I don't think that will be a problem. But yeah, if we can do what we can to march together and have marshals and try to get permits from the city, but at the end of the day, like this march is happening, this protest is happening, and you know, we can't, if the police want to tear gas us that bad, I think that they're just going to do it. Grace?
Yeah, a lot of these questions, I'm putting this in the chat. The National Lawyers Guild is having a Know Your Rights training tomorrow on Zoom at 6 p.m. Like Noor saying, there's going to be marshals, there's going to be folks there to answer your questions about like police presence and what to be doing. And the marshals have that role of being an obstacle between you and the police. However, it's always good for you personally to know your rights, especially if you're coming in from Chicago and haven't interacted with Chicago police as much as the Chicago folks here have. I know Chicago folks protesting have definitely dealt with police that have been not in our face and in our face. So NLG has all of those answers for you as someone coming to a protest, as someone in a role, as someone doing a direct action. So if you have those questions, you can check out their website, or you can, what I just sent, sign up for that Know Your Rights training. I'm going to be there tomorrow. And I'll also send, there's a book that they have on there too for Chicago specific Know Your Rights resources and all that good stuff.
Thanks, Grace. Mike?
First question is not very critical. Who's the MC at the Late Show? Does anybody know that? Because I just heard about this guy Phelan who does a show like that, and I saw YouTube and it was really funny. And
Are you talking about on the 21st?
right, the Medea and
Danica, who's I'm seeing that.
right.
I don't remember his name. My friend Dev's the producer, but
Phelan? Is there a guy named Phelan?
but if
okay.
if you click on the if you go to buy
Yeah.
a ticket, I think that the name's on there.
Okay. And then the other thing I was going to say is I have like 3 acres that people can be primitive camping, but I'm very far away from the site. But, you know, for commuting or if they want to pitch a tent for free, kind of a thing.
Good to know. Thank you.
All
Let's
right.
Leticia? I don't know. You're muted, Leticia, but if you want to put your question in the chat, feel free. Does anybody else have any questions? Go ahead.
I missed the beginning of the Zoom, but are there any restrictions about the signage we can carry? Restrictions on sticks or, what your sign looks like?
Yeah, anything is pretty much fine as long as whatever your sign is on isn't a stake. There's no stakes allowed. So if there's anything with like a pointed edge, like something you can like put into the ground, that's the only restriction.
But if it's a 1 foot wooden stick, that's okay, or something.
Yeah, that's fine. As long as it's not pointed on the edge.
Gotcha.
Or on the bottom.
Okay. And are you going to distribute some signs as well then? I probably missed that.
Yeah, we will have signs, but any signs that you take from us, you'll just have to return them.
Sure. And homemade signs are pretty nice to add
ours
to signs.
Yeah. Ours are very homemade. They're on cardboard. So
okay, I'm gonna make a couple signs. Thank you. I'm from the Colleen Rowley group who makes lots of signs.
Oh, nice. Okay, thank you. Yes, we love DIY signs. Leticia, are you able to come off mute? Oh, your question is related to the quest at City Hall for a large route on the march. Any updates? If you want to check the march on the DNC Coalition Instagram, whenever there is an update, they will post it there. But from what I understand, the city is still trying to like keep this march to a mile, which is not possible. It's not going to happen because the amount of people there is going to be longer than 1 mile. Hopefully. Any other questions? Okay, and if anything comes up, you can always ask it in the Signal chat, or you can email me, noor@codepink.org, and I'll answer your questions. And how many people are estimated? I think the estimate is 40 to 50,000. So hopefully, we reach that. That's definitely possible. In Chicago, we've had marches that large. So the link to the Signal chat is in the chat. Steve?
Yeah, Danica, since some of us are driving and have our cars there, Lakeshore Drive is beautiful. How about like a car demo up and down Lakeshore Drive?
I'm not sure if somebody's like organizing something like that. I personally don't have a car, so I don't know if I would organize a car demo with other people. I wouldn't be able to participate. But no, we don't have plans for that, and not sure we would be able to organize that since we have a bunch of other stuff going on that week. But if I hear anything about that, I'll definitely let you know.
Yeah, no, I knew you didn't. I just wondered if somebody was thinking about it.
It's a fabulous idea. Thanks for thinking about it. And, ideas are going to be organic during the week. So if you find a hole, I'm sure your leadership would be appreciated as you get to know some of the people who have cars. Peace caravans are beautiful.
Thanks, Jody. If anybody has any more questions, like I said, feel free to email me or ask it in the Signal chat. Really important that you join the Signal chat. I just want to emphasize that one more time, because that is going to be our main form of communication through the week. If we're joining an action, we're going to let the Signal chat know. If there's a different location that we're going to be meeting at, we're going to let the Signal chat know. Very important that you have it downloaded on your phone, because you're going to have your phone on you. Pam?
Okay, so we're coming in a bus from Milwaukee, and hopefully we'll have 40 people. And so, and we're with Peace Action Wisconsin, and a lot of other groups. So, do you have any idea how would we get in there on a bus?
Yeah, I would go onto the March on the DNC Coalition's website, because they have information on like where people are going to be parking and where people are going to be able to pull up the day of. So they're coordinating that. Okay. And I'm sure, are you the one who's coordinating the bus, or are you just on the bus?
I'm helping, yes.
Okay. Yeah, definitely whoever is coordinating the bus should get in touch with the coalition. If you want to connect them to me, I can connect them to who they need to talk to.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. All right. Well, thank you all for joining us. I'm gonna pass it to Danica.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. It's going to be what?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah.
You're going to send all this information, like the marches and where they're going and things like on an separate email? What time to start and stuff?
I swear on my life, every single one of you will get all the information sent to you probably 10 times before Sunday starts. We will be very thorough. It'll be in Signal. It'll be on email. Just look out for Grace, Noor, or my name. If you've had to have RSVP'd on our site for the DNC stuff. But if you did, it's usually how you get these links. You will get all the information, I promise. Meetup times, and then you could always ask questions in Signal too.
Okay. Do you know anything about the parking right around Union Park?
I do not, personally, but we can send information in the Signal chat too. We can look for that. But most parking in that part of Chicago is like either permit parking, so look for the red signs. If it says permit parking, don't park there. But if it's a green parking meter sign, you can park there. Grace.
Yeah, also for people who are driving in, bus, car, whatever, I put on that travel page the apps you need for like pay to park on the side, and I'll also include a part with the actual street signs so you know exactly what you're looking for. Union Park is right next to United Center, which is where the DNC is happening. There's not much like in terms of other big places around there, so there will be a lot of parking, but like Danica said, permanent parking might be bigger than pay to park, so you have to know what you're parking for and how to pay for it, and that's all on the travel page.
All right. Okay, with that being said, Please join the Signal chat. And if you send the Signal link to join to someone else that you know is coming, please just let us know so we can approve them into joining the group chat. We're just trying to be careful of all of that. And like everyone said, our plans during the in-between days are going to be very fluid. So this Signal chat is going to be so important. And for that reason, we do ask everyone to just use the Signal chat for urgent questions regarding each actions for each of the days. Please don't send any articles or any opinions in the chat. We can make maybe a separate group chat for that kind of thing. But if people are asking questions and then a bunch of other things are being sent in between, people will get lost. They won't be able to find the answers, and we'll lose people that way. So we don't want to do that. So please keep the Signal chat to just urgent questions and March related things. And also, if you're going to an action, you could put that in the chat. I'm going if anyone wants to come, and we will do the exact same thing because we're waiting for the DNC schedule to come out and related events. So we want to make sure that as soon as we hear about one and as soon as we need people to come demonstrate with us at those separate events, you guys can know about it and join us too. So yeah, does anyone have any lingering questions before this is our last prep call? And remember the marshals, please stay on. Shahad?
Yeah, I have a question. So I wasn't able to come in the first 30 minutes. So could you just give me or can you just summarize the most important points, anything I need to know from the first 30 minutes?
You will get everything you need to know in an email. Like meeting times, schedule of events, that sort of thing. Join the Signal group chat. I think you'll be okay.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem.
Brava.
Oh, thank you. All right. Well, start hydrating. It's hot here. Start hydrating now. Please take your vitamins and multivitamins to protect yourselves. But I'm so excited to march with you all. This is going to be huge and historic, and I feel so grateful to be in this fight with all of you. So we'll see you on Sunday or Monday wearing pink. And thank you all so much. And marshals, have a good training, and thank you for marshaling with Code Pink.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. See you very soon.
Thank you so much to the organizers.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Tag.
Marshals, please stay on.
Okay, I bounced out. Well, there wasn't a whole lot of eventful stuff on that call. I will say, so I don't want people to think that the people that we just saw on that call are like, why do I look like I'm in a kid's chair or something like that? I think it's just that I have my I don't know what the hell. Anyway, I don't want so there are a couple different types of socialists. There are the radical revolutionary Antifa socialists that usually tend to be younger, usually tend to wear all black, usually tend to be queer Marxists. And then there are the old hippie socialists, and I've seen this at the events that I've gone undercover at. It's almost like everyone is universally one of those two. You are either an old hippie socialist or you are a queer Marxist, Antifa, radical revolutionary leftist. And obviously the people that we just saw on that call were more of the old hippie socialist variety. Now, I'm not particularly afraid of the old hippie socialists. I don't think the old hippie socialists are going to cause us a lot of problems. But I guess I want to bring this up because don't believe for 1 second that those are the only types of leftists that are going to be at that march. What we just watched it was one group out of dozens of groups that are going to be protesting the DNC. There is a large coalition of people, a large coalition of groups that are going to be doing this. They've all been organizing. We heard on that call that they expect 40 to 50,000 people to show up, and they're not all old hippie protesters. And so that was just one of the groups that is organizing in it. Do they have, let's see, do they have other signing up to table? Do they have the organizations listed anywhere? I don't know. I'll have to look into that. But listen, if you join their Signal group, Don't troll them. Just gather information. Let me know if there's anything that I need to know and stuff like that. And guys, as a reminder, we are going to be covering the DNC live all next week. Not only are we going to be watching the DNC and seeing what cringe hell comes out of that, I will also be monitoring protest coverage. So we will be doing, I may even stream more for the DNC than I did for the RNC, because I would kind of like to stream these protests. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of live coverage on the ground. I think the protests outside of the DNC might actually be more interesting than the stuff going on at the DNC. So there might be an excessive amount of streaming next week, but I think it's going to be fun. I think it's going to be fascinating. I think it's going to be way more interesting than the RNC. We're going to get to make fun of these people so much. It's going to be great. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel wherever you're watching on, whether that be YouTube, Rumble, or of course I am streaming on X as well. Also, reminder, if this was your first spy stream experience, this was, like I said, this was like an uneventful spy stream. A couple things I do want to point out, though. Number one, when they talked about wearing masks, these people really do believe that COVID is still a thing. They're not just saying that. They actually do believe that COVID is still a thing. And so while they also do use masks to hide their identity, first and foremost for these people is always COVID. We have to protect ourselves. We have to protect each other. The coronavirus pandemic is still going on and blah, 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 blah. So that is actually very real. And you heard them say that. And again, this is their private group. This is not something they're doing for public consumption. I just made it for public consumption because I did. So that's number one. Number two, and we talked about this in the chat, did that sound like a well-funded George Soros group? Because this is what conservatives say. All these groups are funded by George Soros. They have all this money. This is why they're able to do all that stuff. Was there any talk of that on the call? No. They were literally looking for volunteers to take pictures. They were looking for people to bring stuff. It was just about coordination. That's all it was. And I bet on the fundraising calls that these people do, and they raise money from each other. It's voluntary donations. And so can we please dispense with the idea that all these people are George Soros funded? I'm sorry, that's just not the case. A lot of these people are just part of organizations that, they put it together on the fly. I want to thank Tayton for this super chat. This was another great point. The right could never organize like this. I do think one of the benefits of looking at calls like this is you see how other groups organize, and you can learn from those and you can make things better. And the left is highly organized. They may not be perfect about it, but they are highly organized, and they do communicate really well out to their audiences. And this is why they're able to get so many people to show up. And this is why they're able to get people involved. Thank you, Tayton, for that super chat. Azure Wing, as always, we need an area for those of us with sensory issues to protest. Did they actually say that? It wouldn't surprise me if they did. I didn't hear that, but did they actually say that? Because that's so leftist that it hurts. And they will be accommodated. They will. I bet you there will be some group that has that accommodation for them. So we'll be streaming all this stuff next week, guys. I hope you enjoyed that little peek into Spy Stream. Now, if you enjoyed that Spy Stream, I would like to invite you back tomorrow, because tomorrow we'll be doing a different Spy Stream. We will be doing the makeup Spy Stream from last week. We'll be going inside a live private training led by school teachers that are teaching in schools right now. And they're going to be talking about transing kids in schools. So don't believe Matt Walsh when he says, we've defeated the transgender movement. He hasn't defeated shit. He has no idea. They're doing a live presentation tomorrow. Radical leftist school teachers talking specifically about transing kids in schools. Who has the private link? I do. So we're going to be watching that tomorrow. It's going to be around about 7 o'clock. And the way you get access to that is by heading over to my Substack, which is Carlyn, KARLYN.substack.com. And what I need you to do is sign up as a supporter for $8 a month. They're $80 a year. There's also an option to give more if you want to. This spy stream, typically, today was an impromptu spy stream. We found out about it an hour before the event. So I did it live and publicly, but most of the time I don't do spy streams publicly, just because it increases the propensity that someone's going to tell on me and it's going to cause problems and all that stuff. So almost every spy stream I do where I take people inside a live leftist training, it is a supporter only spy stream. So sign up as a supporter on my Substack. You will get access to those credentials tomorrow. You can also sign up as a supporter in my locals, on my Patreon, Twitter subscriptions, or YouTube channel memberships. Everyone who is a supporter on any of those platforms will get access to the spy stream tomorrow. I will be sending out the credentials. We will still be doing a 5 o'clock stream, I think, probably tomorrow. And that will be leading into the spy stream, which will start around about, I believe it's like 7 or 7:30 or something. I have to go back and look at the time. Don't quote me on that. I will send out the credentials for it tomorrow, though, so we'll know then. And you guys will be able to see, what do teachers say? What do radical leftist teachers say when they don't think that people like us are listening? I'll broadcast it live. You can hear directly from the horse's mouth. You don't have to believe me. You don't have to believe anyone else. You can come and hear it for yourself. So again, head over to my Substack, carlin.substack.com, and sign up as a supporter. $8 a month, $80 a year. If you can't afford to support my work, hey, you can still get free email updates. Most of my content is for free. And so I still encourage that. And if you are in a position to financially support my work, please do so, because you help keep my content free for everyone. I really want to make as much of my content available freely as possible. I do the occasional supporter perk every now and again. Mostly with Spy Stream, I do it because it's just, it makes it prevents me from getting tattled on, essentially. I used to do spy streams publicly, and then every time I would launch a spy stream, some leftist stalker that stalks everything I do, or just an unhinged lunatic on the internet, would like contact the organization. They'd be like, "Carlin, spy streaming you," and I would get in trouble, and the stream would get pulled down, and the thing would get canceled, and then we wouldn't be able to see it. So the reason I took spy stream from a public thing to a supporter thing, it was a logistical thing where it's just a whole heck of a lot easier to do it, and it cuts down on the propensity for us to get kicked out of the training or the thing to be canceled. There's stuff like that. And so that's why we do that. But I do really try to keep most of my content free for everyone. And you guys can help me do that. If you are in a position to financially support the work I'm doing, please consider doing so. Otherwise, if people don't, eventually I'm just going to have to lock down my content to paid supporters. I don't want to do that. Please don't make me do that. Let's just play nice. $8 a month, $80 a year, not asking too much. I want to thank everyone who sent in a super chat today to support my work. You are also invaluable, and I really do appreciate it. And now I will take my leave, because I have another stream in an hour, and I got to get some dinner. I will not be streaming Nick's show tonight. I'm very sorry if that disappoints anyone, but I gave Nick Fuentes 11 hours of my life yesterday. All right. And I appreciate Nick, and I'm going to be watching his show later on my own in private. Oh shit, that sounded I didn't mean it like that. I meant I'm gonna watch it by myself, not on the internet. I didn't mean anything salacious. Don't fucking clip that. But like, I just meant that, like, I'm not gonna be streaming his show today. I have other shit I need to do. All right, that's what I meant. I have other stuff I need to do. And one of those things I need to do is I'm doing my own show at 9 o'clock, and Jenna Fire and I are going to be having a chat about what happens when pets die and all that stuff. And because my Disenrage show, Disenrage is a show I do on Tuesday nights at 9 o'clock. Disenrage is all about spirituality and life and like just different perspectives on the world. Jennifer sadly had a pet die over the weekend. She's been processing that. And so she wanted to talk about what happens when pets cross over. We got some videos we're going to watch. I know a lot of people can sympathize with losing a pet. Most of us have been there. It really sucks. And so hopefully we can give you some higher level perspective on that. And then after that, later I'll watch Nick's show, because Nick is going to be talking about Groyper War tonight. I do actually want to see it. I'm just not going to do it live on the internet. All right. That's all I meant. I wasn't being salacious. I'm probably going to do it as I'm doing other work. It's really not, I promise you, it's not exciting. It's not remotely exciting. Anyway, that's all I have for right now. I'm going to go get some dinner. I'll be back in an hour. Take care, guys. We'll see you soon. Bye.